everybody?
What up?
It is my distinct pleasure.
Yay.
I'm extremely excited. Hey, don't say anything until I introduce you, okay? It is my distinct pleasure. I'm extremely excited to introduce you all to the most beautiful, incredible, amazing, unique, and inspiring person I've ever met in my entire life. She also happens to be my wife.
My wife.
And, and I'm so lucky to call her that. Ladies and gentlemen, Casey Mang Fermanides!
I'm being in the crowd going wild.
Hi, Casey, my love.
Hey, Casey.
Hi.
I'm here too. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, Ryan's here too.
Oh, yeah,
everybody.
Ryan.
Did you guys...
The Bledsoe said so. Mr. Bledsoe said so himself.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, hi, Casey. I'm over here.
Ryan.
Did you guys expect that Ryan would be on this episode?
No.
I contemplated not.
Nick and I were just going to kiss on the couch the whole time.
Yeah, they did that for an hour?
Yeah, it's back in high school. Dude, this is giving me vibes
God.
like back in high school.
Third wheel.
Can I tell a story?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah,
No.
I was their notorious third wheel, bro. Because
The eternal third wheel.
I was there the day that they met. Actually, we
Yes.
met me and Nick had been friends for years and years at this point, and we met you at like a church function, and it was like all the way up until I was with Jenny that I was always y'all's third wheel.
We met at the football game.
No.
No? No.
No, Ryan's correct. I met both of you the same day. Nick just doesn't remember me.
I know. I remember when
so,
y'all met more
so
accurate.
unbelievably unforgettable. I guess.
No, I do remember it.
We had gone to like this church social, and it was supposed to be a dance, like a prom for everybody.
It was like a formal.
And Nick won like the worst outfit award. Or something. It was like best dressed, but it was like because Nick came in a t-shirt and flip flops.
No. I was wearing a flannel, a V-neck underneath it, and jeans and flip flops.
Yeah, and he won.
Everybody else had like tuxes on and dresses.
The bar was on the floor. Like,
Yeah.
They just were like, give it to him. And so I met Ryan that day. I remember Ryan wasn't feeling very good. He was sick.
I wasn't. I was actually sick that night.
Yeah, he was really sick.
Like physically, I was not feeling
You were.
good.
I remember you were just looked like
I was quiet the whole
a
time.
pale ghost.
Yeah.
That's right.
You were very like back in the corner, sitting in a little chair, and we talked briefly, and then officially we started dating like a couple months later. But the first time we like met or
Hung
like
out.
officially met was at the football.
I
game.
always forget about.
Yeah,
right.
Because you did not remember me. You literally just did not remember me.
I didn't. But
We didn't really talk though.
Yeah,
It's
we
okay.
didn't talk at all.
Yeah, you
don't
just
you
kinda-
don't you
you,
put
like-
this on me?
You like cross paths, but you didn't really like
Yes.
get to know
Yeah,
each other.
I didn't-
But
even
I
get to
mean,
talk to you.
But Ryan also, it was the same thing, and he does remember me.
I remember.
So-
I remember because in the 10 plus years we've all been friends, you and I occasionally talk about that. Like, actually,
Yeah.
this is when you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little joke that Nick doesn't actually remember meeting me for the first time.
I don't know who this is.
Yeah, so
I have no idea who this is.
Who are you?
No, but then we like officially all met at a high school football game.
Yes.
And this little cretin
oh
right
my
here.
God, okay.
She pulled out a ukulele
Yeah.
and we all sat around in a circle.
I was one of those people.
She was one of those people. But like, what was I, 15 or 16?
You would have been 16.
At that time, I was absolutely mesmerized immediately.
Oh,
I
yeah.
immediately thought like, I want to be in this girl's life. Because she's just like, we're all sitting in a circle. She's singing these beautiful songs and playing the ukulele. I was
An
like,
angel and
You're a
absolute-
guitarist. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
I'm into guitar.
And
yeah.
the expectation up until that point was that like, oh, hey, you gotta meet Nick. Like,
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
hey, you gotta meet Casey. So like, we kind of already were like, I don't know. I think there was an automatic attraction because we were just like, oh, we're supposed to meet each other. Like, we're supposed to get
Yeah, I had my
there
friends.
were so many people that were like, you gotta meet Casey. You gotta meet Casey.
For sure. Yeah, I had my friends pushing me to meet Casey. She had her friends pushing her to meet me. And then we met. And like, honestly, it was like I was immediately in love.
Yeah, it was like the day before Halloween, which is so crazy because that's like literally today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
my-
yeah. It's 2 days
Today's
before
like,
Halloween. But
and,
yeah,
and it was the same
technically-
thing
Wait,
because
wait.
Halloween-
Is today the 29th?
Yeah.
It's 2 days before Halloween.
The 29th is the day we all met at the football game. The football game was the 29th.
That's what I'm saying. It was the day before Halloween.
Wow.
The next day.
What a
That's 2 days
synchronicity.
before
The
Halloween.
next day was Saturday, and there was a Halloween. There was a Halloween like fall festival at your church at the time, and I was invited by a couple of my friends, and I was supposed to actually bring a date, like a guy that I was talking to at the time, and it just so happened that they like canceled on me, and Nick was like thinking about. It was like so many things like worked out for us to both go to this random fall festival where there was like 12 people in attendance.
Yeah,
Like it was 3 of us were there.
Well, it was at the church. Yeah.
Yeah,
Small group of youth group.
And so that was like in place of Halloween because they did trick-or-treating that night.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think they did it that day because I think that was one of the years that Halloween was on a Sunday.
Sunday, exactly.
I'm not 100% sure, but I remember it being like
No, that's exactly what it was. That year, Halloween was on Sunday, and so they were like, "Well, that's evil, so we don't want to do that on a Sunday."
So they had like a Saturday
Halloween
festival Halloween thing.
Yeah.
And see, while these lovebirds were over here getting acquainted, I was chugging monsters getting weird. You know what I mean? I was single till I was 20, dude.
Yeah, we all hung out so much when we first started dating. Like our first dates were all...
Another crazy synchronicity that happened that night. So look, I meet this girl. I'm like immediately in love.
Oh,
and
he's
I'm
enamored.
Like,
Oh,
yeah, he was taken.
He's cute, I guess, but he wears flip-flops in October. It's a little
Wow. You're going to do this to me on my show?
Right now.
Yeah, I know. He's becoming a flip-flop boy again.
Dude, we were born in the summer. That's why we like Santa.
I know.
We want to see the.
It was just a.
No,
it was an
it's
outfit.
not for free. Not for free. You don't get the free.
Yeah,
but
no, these
listen,
are covered.
This is what happened. So I'm already like completely in love with this girl immediately because she's so cool, and she asked. Because again, trick or treating that year was on Saturday, and so it was that night, the night of that church function thing, and so she's like, "You should come trick or treating with me and my little brother," or whatever.
No, it was me and our friend from
Right.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, okay." You know, obviously I'm 16. I don't have a car. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get to your house or whatever, but like, it could be cool. So I was like, "Where do you live?" And she says, "Labrador Drive," which is a quarter mile from where I live.
Yeah.
And like a half a mile from
where you live.
A mile from where I live.
Like a mile.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those things that I had just moved from Hope Mills, like to this house. This was like my dad's retirement house. Like this is like his getting out of army house.
Yeah.
And so like I was very new to the area, and it was just so random that I was like, I didn't even know my address, to be honest. And then you're like, that's literally where I live.
Yeah, I was like, that's literally right down the road from where I live. I mean, we always took our dogs on walks down Labrador Drive because they were Labradors.
It's a really long walk, though. Like you have to walk.
Well, through the golf course, though. It's not that long.
We would
I
walk.
forgot.
We would just literally get on like what's that hole 17? We would go hole 17 from hole 18 to 17, and we would walk. Describe
the whole golf course.
Yeah, I know that's so relatable to all our listeners.
Talk about the golf course. No, I'm just kidding. This is the golf course.
Let's just make this episode all about the golf course.
Yeah, it was just weird. We kind of just fell into each other's like radius very quickly. Like it was just like all of a sudden all of our friends started to know each other, and like I had just broken up with somebody, and they were like, you should talk to Nick. You should talk to Nick. I was like, for what? For whom?
For why?
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And then like within a month we were dating, and like we haven't stopped since.
Well, we did. We did.
No, we did.
We stopped for a year, but it's we're back.
We went over this last night, bro. It wasn't a year. It was like 4 months.
Yeah, it didn't count. And Ryan, the entire time up until Jenny came into the picture, was like always hanging out with us. One of our first like few dates that we went on was like going to the movies with me, with you,
because
and
here's
Lainey,
the thing: they were young. You know, we were all young, so it was like,
and we were
y'all
saving
can't.
ourselves
This is the worst part.
for marriage.
Oh yeah, that's
because I was 14, and you know that was a really big risk for me.
Well, no, we talked about this last night. Your mom and your dad were like, you got to hang out with him without being alone. You got to have friends around.
Yeah.
So I was always on their dates.
Yep.
I didn't know that as a kid. I was just hanging out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You were our chaperon, bro.
Yeah, I was actually your chaperone and had no clue till last night.
Oh, that Ryan kid? Yeah, he's dorky. He can go with you guys.
Yeah.
he can tag along. He's definitely.
Yeah, he's definitely.
He's gonna kill the mood. No, just kidding. No, but Ryan, and to the point where like the joke was Ryan is the pillar of our relationship. Because Ryan was so like always in the middle of us.
Yeah, even when y'all would be like not talking for a month, I'd be whispering each of your ear like, y'all need to get back together. Y'all need to get back
you really
together.
like her though, right?
Yeah.
I saw Casey at like some high school function, and I was like, I literally said, you might not even remember this.
I don't, but I'm really excited.
I was like, Casey, I love you, and Nick is just being the way he is, and y'all gonna get back together.
Yeah, we were. I was 14 years old. We broke up like every other week.
Oh yeah, just like high school kids do. Like break up for a weekend, and then you're
I don't know if this is true or not. I don't think Nick had a cell phone.
Oh no, I had an iPod Touch, and you remember this?
You were using like the little app.
It was like
Yeah,
it was like a
email.
texting. It was called like Text Now or something like that. And it was through
bogus.
it was through an
Email.
email. And I could only use it if I was on Wi-Fi.
And so, like, if I wasn't
remember that.
available to talk at the very moment that Nick was available to talk, which was like never, it was like, you hate me.
Yeah, that's like being
So we would break up like every other week.
yeah. That's like
So it was
being
just-
a teenager and just being extremely insecure.
Oh yeah, 100%.
1,000%. Yeah.
And like just not emotionally mature yet.
1,000%,
You know, that's just
yeah.
Which is
that's how
why
it
this is so fun for me, because like I have literally grown up with you two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I became
Well,
an adult.
likewise.
Like I know like there's your ages when you're a child and you're like small and doing stuff, but like I've grown up into who I am as an adult, my personality, like with you two. Nick has been there through my entire like adolescence, like from the ages of 14 onward.
Yeah.
Which is a long time. And same with Ryan. I mean, like both of you guys were very part of like my growing up. So now it's
We're
like,
the-
look at us now. We're all adults.
Yeah, we're the pillars of your personality.
You know what? It's crazy
No,
because
that's mental illness.
Oh my god.
That's
so
trauma, y'all.
even back then when we were like that young, me and Nick have always been trying to make music. Always. It's like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's truly the reason we became such great friends was like we rode on the bus, we always hit it off, and you know it was like the first time I went over to his house, he was like, "Oh yeah, I play guitar," and he broke it out and started playing like Killswitch Engage and all this
How
stuff.
lame.
And I
How
was
lame
like,
to bring your friend over and be like, watch me play guitar.
Is it though? Because literally like a year later, I got a drum set
Yeah, you're right.
for my birthday.
You're right.
And I was like, we're going to make music. I had no clue how to play drums. And even back then, dude, we made that one song when we were like, I think I was a sophomore in college and you were a freshman in college. Even back then, Casey and my wife, who at the time we had just recently started dating, even back then, they were like, we're going to be your merch girls. We're going to be your merch girls. And, you know, because we're like,
Casey was like designing our logo.
Yeah.
I
and,
have
like,
designed pretty much every logo for all the bands that Nick has gone through.
and the podcast.
And the podcast.
That Casey made that by hand.
Yeah, I know.
And that.
I think we didn't really like talk about this, but like I call myself like the secret fifth Beatle of the Bledsoe podcast. I am like in the background. I've been part
You're
of
our contractor.
You know, I really love being hands off, but I love this podcast. I really do. As much as I'm probably not like people don't see me be involved. Like,
Right.
I'm here all the time.
that's where I was going with it.
Our
We
brand,
manifested this.
yeah,
Yes, we did.
Our
You're
brand
right.
image, anything that you see with any kind of design on it, our entire brand image comes from that woman's brain.
And
It's-
Jenny,
And
obviously,
Jenny's
too.
technical
of course.
knowledge of
Yeah. Of
piecing
course.
things together.
Jenny and I
yeah.
have
It's a
worked
team thing.
so much on this podcast, just between like the vision that we've had, the ideas that because you know, I think Jenny and I are both earth signs and we're both like really driven technical people, and I think Jenny and I can like move mountains when we really get to it.
Oh yeah, y'all hit it off right from the start.
We have.
Oh, yeah.
and have
We've-
been besties ever since.
We have been, and then like it was just kind of crazy how we evolved, grew up and moved through all these different social dynamics and dating and being friends and not being friends and, you know, breaking up, and now we're married and you're married, and like
It's crazy to think
it's real
about.
now. It's like
So
we're this is what we thought about when we were in high school. Now we're here as adults.
It is. It's
we're doing
wild.
it. We're doing the big shit that we dreamed of as little kids, and that's where I was going with me always being their third wheel. And Nick had said like they made this joke all the time. I was the pillar of their marriage. It was a joke, but the joke was that someday I would marry them, and then, you know, flash forward, Nick actually married me.
Yeah,
we made that joke a
Yeah,
reality.
we
and,
weren't speaking at the time, and we just had a falling out as like a friend group, which I think is just part of growing pains.
part of growing
It's just
up.
part
Absolutely.
of being. We. I mean, obviously, we're all super close now.
Oh, yeah.
So it didn't even matter at the time, but now that we had the opportunity to see you guys get married, it was cool to be like, wait, now we can manifest the actual thing we joked about this whole time was just like marrying the two of us.
Yeah.
And now like our families in a way are married. Like we hang out so much. We have a drawer in your guys' guest bedroom. Like it's fun as adults to see like how much when we were 14 and 15-year-old kids, how much we've come from.
Yeah, just like the thought that we're all like being adults together is crazy.
Right?
Like,
Yeah,
Or like
it's
the
pretty
fact
weird.
that we like, oh, well, your house was a mile down the street. Like we all went over to your dad's house during the summer, and it was just weird for all of us, like you, me, Jeremy, Jenny was there. I don't know who else came.
Emily.
Oh, did Emily come
I
as
think
well?
Chris Tootin was there.
No, this was during the summer. Like when we went over with your dad. It was definitely Jeremy and your mom. And it was like, oh, wow, what full circle moment for us to like go from hanging out
Oh,
here.
you're talking about recently. Oh, okay.
Over the summer.
I thought you were talking about like years ago.
No, over the summer we all got to hang out back at Nick's parents' house, and it was like this, and we just worked on a project at my parents' house, and it was weird. It was weird coming back after all those years of like, we used to spend all of our weekends here when we were 14 and 15.
We would rotate houses. It was like one Friday, one night would have been Casey's, then mine, then Nick's, and just literally just like would swap each other's houses.
We had like a friend group of like,
but they both had a pool.
people.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I had.
But Ryan had aliens at his house, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I was telling Ryan last night, I was like, we should talk about the first time you ever talked about your family's experience. He was like, I didn't even remember. It was after we went swimming at my pool one night. We were all sitting on the back porch, and you were telling. It was right when the movie stuff was happening.
Oh yeah,
and you were telling me
it had just started then.
And me and Ryan probably talked about it for almost 2 hours, an hour and a half, just on the back porch talking. And I was asking so many questions, and I remember him saying like, "I'm really excited that you're excited about this," because people usually don't get excited about this.
I'm still saying that.
Yeah, and I was like, "This is exciting. What do you mean?" Like, because to me, I was just like, I haven't been in this community very long to know you don't know the Bledsoe story?
Yeah.
And I remember whenever we started hanging out, that was something that was told to me at school, is like, you should go on YouTube and look at the family documentary. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I want to learn more. But I never looked at it as like, I was never aware of like the stigma around it at the time, because I didn't grow up in Grace Creek. I didn't know your family growing up.
So you remember the first time he told you about it? You do?
Yeah, we were on the back porch, which is so crazy because we just did something on the back porch of the same back porch.
Oh,
the same back porch. We produced our own movie, our own project, and it's crazy because like that we sat there and talked about
the movie,
and
then we made a movie.
Yeah, the Hollywood movie that never did happen. Right, but you know,
it was in the work. It was just like, it was when you were all meeting up with producers, and I was just very interested because I was like, I've never heard anybody who had anything going on that exciting in their life.
Yeah, you know, you've always had an extremely open mind, like even in the throes of being like very religiously oppressed, and like very deeply indoctrinated into whatever.
I just always didn't understand why. Like, I always wanted to push. I mean, that's been my eternal struggle as like a human being, is like questioning the rules. I've always been like, well, why? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to say that? Why do I have to feel that way? Yeah.
No, thinking back on it, you've always been open to it. Like, I never remember whenever when we first started talking to you about the alien stuff, it was never like, what? Like,
no, the only
that's
thing that,
weird. It wasn't like that.
No, what freaked me out was like the government stuff, just because I was like, that seems like way out of my range.
It's scary when you first hear it.
It was like, as a teenager, I
used to be terrified.
I was scared for you, and like that kind of freaked me out a little bit, honestly, because it was a scary situation to be like, people are just showing up at his house. And it's a little. I know it was exciting at the time, but like for me, I was weary because I was like, oh, what's happening? There's big stuff going on.
Did you ever meet Hal Pavemeyer, the guy from NASA?
Okay, so there was a night that I think he was over and I was invited over, but I did not.
That's the night I met him. That's when I met him.
Yeah, Nick had called me that night and asked me about going, and I was like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know who he is.
And it's also like, if you've never heard a word of any of this stuff, it's pretty freaky, dude.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, my
shocking.
biggest thing, people don't really know me. You guys know me very well, though, is that I'm an anxious person. I'm a very nervous, anxious person.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of stories, like the time that Warren, Ryan's cousin, taped up. We're from the South, y'all. There's not a lot of fun to do. We lived in Grace Creek. There's a very high pregnancy rate. Like, people just had nothing to do.
Teenage pregnancy rate.
There's really nothing to do.
Like, there really was nothing to do. So, like, Warren went to south of the border and bought all these sparklers and taped them together with electrical tape. We
should be talking about making bombs on the podcast, bro. I'm just kidding.
No. It was sparklers. It was sparklers, which are very legal. Yeah. And you can get them at Walmart.
No, I'm just
That's true.
So he taped them together and like was trying to. I mean, also Warren was a teenager. Like, get mad.
I'm just kidding.
Get mad at him.
Yeah, get mad at him. This is kid stuff. And like, we went to go light it, and we didn't even get it to light. But I was crying. I was having a full panic attack.
We drove in like a caravan, like 3 or 4 cars to a cornfield, and he lit it. And the entire time on the way there, while it was happening, and on the way back, Casey's like hyperventilating, like, I don't think we should be doing this. This just seems illegal. Are we gonna get in trouble?
I'm just a nervous person.
Yeah.
And that night also, I think Warren had backed into somebody. Somebody backed into Warren's car.
I backed into
So
Warren.
it was just,
Oh, yeah.
I'm very...
Shout out Warren.
I love you, Warren.
And Chris, too.
Yeah.
I've always been very stressed out. Because it's always been an anxious thing. I forgot what we were talking about, the anxiousness.
Well, you've come so
just
far
you as a
from that,
person.
and like you've changed so much from that, and like a lot of that. I don't want to go too deep unless you want to.
Yeah,
but
I think good. I mean, I'm here.
I think
it's
a
my
lot-
episode.
Yeah. No, I mean like about you. Like you go as deep into your life as you want to. I'm just saying that I know a lot of that anxiousness, a lot of that nervous energy comes from a lot of I believe the conditions you've been presented with.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, like, from the outside, not being your husband or someone who sees you every day, but seeing you every few weeks or every month or whatever. Like I've noticed that you have tended to overcome a lot of that. I
have. I told Nick and I had a conversation this past couple days ago.
Just a couple, yeah.
And I was like, I feel like I'm finally coming to a place of peace with my anxiety, because I've been incredibly anxious since I was probably a child. Like, I just don't remember never not being stressed out. And I got to the point with over the last couple years where I was like, I'm just tired of being like this. I'm just tired of being so high strung. And it's taken a lot of self-reflection. It's taken a lot of internal work, but I finally feel like I'm in a place where I'm like, I'm just kind of coming to terms with who I am, and I'm happy, and I'm ignoring that little voice of anxiety. But I will say it's taken me a really long time. Nick has seen me struggle for...
Well, I was just going to say, I didn't start experiencing anxiety until maybe around 20, around like my
2015.
Oh, no. Like my early 20s.
I think it started
like,
when you first moved out of the house, because there was a lot of stuff going on in your life. And then I think once we kind of grew up at a certain point when we were disconnected from Ryan, where we got really into drinking, which is
it's bad for anxiety.
Young people do that.
When we were in our 20s, and that's fine, but it was it was an every night thing. It was where we were hanging out every night. That's what we do. Again, we lived in the country. There's nothing to do. There's not a place to hang out.
Shout out Robert, Raven, Nathan.
The squad.
They were our drunk buddies.
And we're all adults now, and we've all handled it. That we're all well
mature
aware of
past that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that also kind of triggered that anxiety in you.
no doubt.
Was the idea that we were drinking all the time too.
And also, alcohol in general is bad for anxiety. Yeah. Like anybody with anxiety knows, you drink heavily, the next day you're feeling anxious.
It's inflammatory to the body.
Literally.
Yeah.
But I mean, so being 16 up to my early 20s, I had no inkling of what anxiety was like, depression was like. That's the thing. I thought I didn't. I was actually feeling those things, but I didn't know how to classify it, or I didn't want to classify it or whatever. But I mean, at that point, Casey, you were in the throes of
I was in the trenches by the time you started feeling it. I was
helping you through panic attacks before I even knew what panic attacks were.
And God bless you, because it was scary.
It was very scary.
I didn't know what was happening, and I felt like I was out of control, and I was punching myself. I'd get so upset, I'd start punching myself in the legs. And
it's like that episode of Ted Lasso when he first has his panic attack, and he's like, I don't know what's happening. I think I'm dying. I was like, I
had no idea. I had no idea. It was honestly my junior year. There was a lot of stuff going on in my personal life with my family. There was just a lot of, this is what we're talking about religion. Even besides that, I was just really questioning church. I was really questioning the foundation of my youth.
If I may cut in here, we haven't even mentioned yet that similar to me and Nick, you also did come from a very strict religious background, which I know put a lot of this pressure on you. I mean, even no offense to anybody in your family, I don't mean any offense, but even at 14, you weren't even allowed to hang out with your boyfriend from high school. No. You know what I mean?
Right. Like I said, because there was such a risk of me becoming pregnant at 14.
Yeah. Well, in your parents' head, that risk is
right.
there.
And I'm like,
you know what I mean? But
meet a 14-year-old, they're not getting pregnant anytime soon.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
you met me when I was 14. I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? I was very chill. I wasn't doing anything.
Oh no, you were pulling lots of guys with your ukulele.
That's why it drove me mad as a kid. I was absolutely batty as a child, especially in my teenage years, because I was like, I'm not doing anything and I'm always in trouble. How is it happening?
Well, baddie, what do you mean?
Baddie, like bat, like a bat,
baddie.
like bat.
I thought you meant I'm a baddie.
I am.
Yes.
That is actually a fact.
Let's go. Preach.
No, I honestly, growing up in church, when I started feeling this anxiety and I started feeling the mental health issues, I was like, okay, this is all going on internally. And then I'm going to church, I mean, like 3 or 4 times a week. I'm there Sunday, I'm there Wednesday. I'm doing youth group. All my friends are from church. I'm constantly spending time with people at church. I'm not allowed to do anything outside of church. But yet this horrible thing is happening in my life where I feel like I'm falling apart. And the idea at church was like, well, it's because you're getting farther away from church. And I was like, well, I feel like I'm just trying to like have fun and like, I'm hanging out with friends that don't necessarily go to my church. And that was like the people who had raised me were now telling me like, well, the reason you're feeling so anxious and the reason you're having such a hard time is because like you're sinning, you're going out and sinning. And I'm like, I'm literally just like hanging out with my friends.
That's the funny part. Like up until we were all adults, we were actually very like innocent, goody two-shoe kids. Like that's the thing. When we were hanging out in private, we were literally like watching movies,
playing Smash Brothers.
Playing Smash Brothers. We were doing the nerdiest kid stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember.
And our parents are like, "You're getting farther from church."
And that was the idea. So it was like you're even, and God was supposed to be this answer for me. God was supposed to answer the feelings that I was having. I mean, I'm like literally crying out to God on the floor of my bathroom, thinking like, just take these feelings away. These feelings of whatever is going on.
Guilt.
Because I didn't know that it was anxiety. I didn't understand that it was caused by guilt. Yeah,
it's like put
the anxiety
on
was because the guilt was really ingrained in me. So I'm always constantly monitoring my actions. What if God was watching me here? What if that wasn't good enough? What if somebody saw me? What if, and that's what they teach you in church is like, you better act like if any time someone's around the corner and they see you, if you were out in public, how would you be showing Christ? And it's like, oh shit, I did something wrong. Was I showing Christ there? And so
anxiety, dude.
So I'm calling out to Christ and I'm saying, I'm trying. I'm really trying to show Christ in my life, and I can't shake these feelings. Like I don't understand, when in reality it's just like, well, honey, you're just mentally ill. You just have a hard time with being in public. Like that's all it was.
Yeah. But those things, like those pressures, all those pressures, it's like you feel pressure in every area of your life. And dude, if that doesn't create anxiety and panic and like, that's freaky.
And I think this was also the first time where I was like, creating identity outside of myself, where I was like, okay, maybe it's not always about church. Maybe I don't have to have interests that only involve with church. I could play music with my boyfriend now. I don't have to just go sing at choir. I skipped out on a youth mission to go to the homecoming game. And I remember the night that I told my pastor that, I was like, hey, I don't have the $75. I can't go to this youth mission, one night conference, whatever, because it's my homecoming at my high school. And he, like that same night, turned around and was like, some of you have no commitment to God. Some of you think that football games are more important to you than your And like, meanwhile, it was more a thing of like, well, my parents didn't want to spend $75 to take for one night when I could go to a football game for
That's
$8.
just sad, man.
And I remember feeling so crushed, like, I disappointed God.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be good enough for God. Like every choice I'm making I'm not worthy in that way.
Yeah. If I hang out with my friends, God's going to hate me because I should have gone to church instead.
So when my interests were most outside of God, when I was being pulled the farthest away from the church, it was like there was stuff going on with my family that I was like, well, this isn't what the Bible was talking about. So it was really hard for me to process the things that were happening, and on top of that, there was a death at our church. There was
I remember this.
There was a suicide at our church.
I remember it's coming back to me.
And it was
very hard.
It was
on
a
you.
younger girl, and she was 12, and I was 16 or 17 at the time, and maybe 16. And it was really hard on me to see how the church responded. It was somebody that like. It was a really unfortunate situation where this person just didn't feel like they had the support that they needed, and there was a lot of things going on. And like after that, the tone in church was like angry, like how could this have happened to this 12-year-old? And it was like,
it was a 12-year-old.
How could God allow this? Yeah.
And I mean, it really gutted me because she looked up to me a lot. The last conversation I had with her was like, oh, you probably don't even remember my name because you're just so cool for me. You don't have time to hang out with me. And this was like 2 weeks before this happened. So there was like, everybody was really heartbroken. Like, how did this happen? And the church, the youth pastor at the time really took it personally and like, I'm going to root out whatever is this evil in our church. And so it like became like the week after this happened, they had us all write on sticky notes, a pink one and a blue one. And they said, on the pink one, write your favorite TV show. And on the blue one, write your favorite song. And I just had this feeling in my gut. I said, I'm not going to write on this sticky note. This is a bad idea. Like, this is a trap. Like, and I said, I'm not going to put anything in. So then that night, my mom was like, did you want to go to church? I said, no, I just, there was a lot going on. I said, I think I just need to be home. And text from my friend the next day. Church was horrible. They took all the sticky notes out of the basket and went by one by one telling the kids, like, how dare you watch this show? How dare you listen to this song? The lyrics of this song are talking about sex. Like, this is what's wrong with this group. Like, this show talks about, Big Bang Theory. How could you? Like,
It's about science, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, that feeling, that was the first time for me where I was like, this isn't right. This is not what this is supposed to be. And it was so hard for me to break free of that because
that's literally like the pastor literally asking for things to be mad at the congregation about. Yeah. Going around and collecting
kids. But this is the youth pastor. This exercise was targeted towards middle school and high school children after the loss of one of their peers. And I was like, this is not how we cope with this. I know you're mad.
That's honestly trauma-based mind control.
Yeah.
Like just traumatizing the kids to be in complete fear of God.
And that's what I learned. Christianity for me was being afraid of God.
Yeah.
You have to be afraid. God is wrathful.
You have to be
God
on your knees trembling in fear. Yeah.
God, you are never going to be enough for him. And you always have to work as hard as possible to make yourself worthy. And as somebody who had a lot of self-esteem issues, that just compounded to full-blown depression, anxiety when I came up through the ages of 15 to into my 20s, just learning to unlearn all of this religious trauma. And I think that's why I was so open to these things, because at the time I was really just looking for anything that felt comfortable or anything that kind of relieved it at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's super tough. It's hard to break those cycles because we were talking about this the other day, you and me. When you're in it, when you're deep in it, it feels good. It feels like you have the answers. It feels like you have this you got it figured out. And then you realize
it's that herd mentality.
But see, there's a double side to that too, because also when you're in it, at least in my experience being in the Pentecostal church, I always felt guilty being around the congregation because it was I'm not in a suit like they are. I'm not shouting every Sunday like they are. I know they think I'm less than them. I'm not filled with the Holy Ghost. I'm not on their level. If I was to die right now driving to school or whatever, I probably would go to hell.
Yeah.
That's why I have to keep going to church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's so funny because back then I'm oh, Pentecostals are crazy, dude. Y'all.
Hey, look at me.
And then I'm look
crazy.
No, because I'm that's weird. I go to a contemporary church. We just get to praise God and love him. And I'm dude, I'm fucking scared for my life every time I come here. It was the same fear. It was just repackaged into
it's just
but we got a coffee bar.
Yeah.
We're contemporary.
Yeah.
You like mood lighting? We got it.
We got muffins.
You want to wear jeans?
Yeah.
You can just feel bad about it.
Yeah.
It was, so it was the idea of being so new with this religion. We're the new age Christians. And then it was no, we're literally just doing the same shit.
We listen to Hillsong, bro.
Yeah. Well, my church was all about being a mega church. They really wanted to be Manna. That's all they wanted was to be Manna Church. And they were just spending money doing anything they could, which if you don't know, Manna is a Hillsong type of church. It's a very large church in Fayetteville that has a very large reach.
Well, let's be careful because now
No. I mean, all I'm saying is that Manna is, I'm referencing Manna everybody
I'm just
goes
messing
to
with you, but
Manna.
I'm just saying I do have a paper trail there with Manna.
We're talking about my church. Manna's fine. It's just a
people.
huge church. And so, I didn't want to just say it you guys knew what Manna Church was.
Manna Church is the mega church.
It's the biggest church.
It is the biggest church in Fayetteville, right? Yeah. But they also have a lot of satellite locations. So they have places all over Fayetteville where people can attend Manna. And the idea that the church was growing to these numbers and our church only had our one congregation was so infuriating. They wanted to be Manna. So
bro, I went to Manna Church one time and they had Stephen Baldwin there with a group of Christian skaters.
Yeah, he's like the cool
I
guy.
remember you
Like,
telling me that. Yeah.
It's
Wait.
very much.
Skaters?
Yeah. Oh, now Alex comes alive. Now,
Welcome, Alex.
Like,
Welcome.
what kind of skaters?
Okay, so skating is kind of like
Skaters for
surfing.
Christ.
Okay,
but
no,
it's on
skateboarding.
concrete.
Skateboarding.
It's like surfing.
Not like rollerblading.
Yes.
Yeah, they would.
Okay. Like, is it like some sort of
you ever
church
seen this?
Sonic where they're skating, rollerblading around?
They set up like trick ramps,
Like half pipes
and like
and stuff?
half pipes, and
That's
they'll do
so
like
cool.
they'll
In the
do like
parking lot.
backflips and like do little things, and they'll be like, "Isn't this cool? You can do stuff for Christ and be cool." And they would. I don't know if you had this specific experience, but we would bring like the strongmen, which is
Oh,
so
yeah.
funny because that's a plot line in that Righteous Gemstones show we were talking about.
Yeah.
They bring strongmen and they like rip telephones, and they're like, "This is
I love
this
that.
is the
I love
power
that.
of Christ," and they would like rip the telephone books and like lift up bricks and like chop things.
I
into them.
unironically love the old time strongmen.
Bro.
Like, I
It's
studied them.
funny.
Bro.
It's
Love
funny,
them.
but it's like
So
also,
fun.
what does this have to do with God?
Yeah.
I can bend a nail with my fingers.
Yeah. Because
This
of
was-
God.
This is what Christ does
Hey,
for you.
not to get too far off topic, but
Yeah.
to be very honest with you about the subject of strongmen, like I used to be into the whole
Yeah.
kung fu thing like crazy for 4 years, and a lot of the kung fu techniques are old time strongmen training techniques. They're the same, like Chinese secretive kung fu and Western old time strongmen training regiments. They're identical, like as far as certain exercises. So I was really into studying it, and I kid you not, some of the most famous old time strongmen in all of history, they literally, like in their books, in their writings, they believed in mysticism and channeling like a white light to give them strength and things
So
like that.
what you're saying was they really were using the
I'm
power.
saying there might be a connection there. No, I had to comment that.
Comment.
Yeah.
Christ.
The power of Christ.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yes, literally.
Yeah.
And that was like I know we were just got off topic.
That's
Man,
so-
I
No,
had-
I'm sorry. I had to say
Yeah,
that.
no,
Well,
it's
yeah.
funny. The strongmen, the skateboarding, like that was part of the appeal of church was that it was
To
like,
make it
supposed
flashy.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
flashy.
100%. So my church really wanted to be flashy, and that was their thing. They were like totally so focused on how can we get as many people here and stay here. Like, don't leave.
Yeah.
Did you go to Mana?
I've gone one time.
Oh, okay.
We went to Mana for a few years, like maybe 2 years, I'd say, and that's when I saw Stephen
I
Baldwin.
went one time.
And
I was really impressed with their communion.
Well-
They had these amazing communion cups. They were like little cups. And I'm not joking. This is really impressive as somebody who'd gone to a massive church and saw how long communion takes.
Oh, yeah.
Each cup had the cracker on top, individually packaged.
Yeah, it's like with
and
plastic.
they had them like. I was
yeah.
like, this is it, ma'am.
That's how Covenant Love had it
and
too.
that's like your little midday snack, like right? Because you've been sitting for
They were
church.
disposable?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
Well, single
Yes.
use.
Yeah.
That is
A
so
little plastic?
That is so foreign.
It was
to
a
me.
little.
That's very mega church of you.
Oh yeah, this is what it was. It was a little tiny plastic
Like a
shot
baby
glass.
creamer, like a half and half.
Yeah, exactly. And then it had plastic on top, and then the wafer on top of that, and then more plastic.
That's
Bro.
capitalism in Christ
Yeah,
in the perfect package.
Where's the spirituality in that?
I
Like, where's the
know.
reference to the metaphor of
I
the
just
passage?
honestly, I
Mass-produced.
ate it
Yeah.
like 10 minutes
like a
into
McDonald's
the service,
creamer
and I was
cup.
like, shit.
Same.
Wait, they gave it
What
to you when you
happened?
walked in?
No, they
this
have
is-
little cup holders.
Exactly.
Wait,
This
so
is-
have
it was
tiny
waiting for you?
Yes.
No.
Listen, this is how it is in mega churches because Covenant Love was like this too. When you sit down for the sermon, so every chair, like
Pews.
you would see the chairs in front of you, and down with the little like grate where you put your books down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
At the very back of the grate was a teeny tiny little cup holder that was this big.
It was meant for those little
And
communion
every
cups.
single chair had one of those communion
It's
cups
a-
with the wafer. So I would go and I'd eat 5 of them, dude.
You steal other people?
Oh yeah, dude.
You go back to like the rows.
Bro.
You go to the back
Dude,
rows
do you know
where
what-
people aren't going to eat them for sure. And you're
Exactly.
like, nobody sits in that back right
Wait,
now.
okay. Is it grape juice or wine?
It's grape,
grape juice.
Okay,
It's
do y'all
grape
know
juice.
how it is in Catholic Church?
Yes,
It's wine.
You
Yeah.
did, and it's actual
No,
bread.
there's no
Christians
dipping.
can't.
Oh, that's
and,
Anglican.
And we
Can't
had to.
drink, that's not it.
Everybody in the church generally like drank from the same cup.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very Anglo-Saxon of
So
you.
we, very wasp of you.
That's very
so
wasp of
we
you.
we went to an Anglican church for years, and actually my parents and grandparents go to an Anglican church now, and it's basically like Catholicism, but like a little. It's like Catholicism light.
It's Christian Catholicism.
It's diet Catholicism.
Yeah.
And it was like that
It's
where
cool, though.
we pass around a literal goblet and everyone's well, it's like the deacon gives it to you and everybody drinks from the same cup. And
it's weird.
yeah.
I don't like that just because I don't want to touch other people's cups, you know.
Yeah.
But I really liked Manna's communion. I thought that was really efficient. I thought for me personally, I was like starving and I'm like, I don't want to get up and go to the coffee bar like in the middle of the service, so I could just eat these little cups in front of me.
Okay.
And I like
so we have to shift gears. I want to talk to you about one of your latest interests / obsessions. I don't know, whatever you would call it.
I think I can tie that into what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
I think because coming out of church and dealing with so much of my own mental health problems, when I started taking care of myself mentally, I think that's a good place for us to
And
kinda go into.
spiritually.
And spiritually. I mean, this podcast was honestly a huge spiritual break for me. I know that we don't talk about that very much, like between Nick and I, but you know, when Nick started doing this and saying some of the things, because I hadn't like understood myself where I was with Christ in my mind, I had to start questioning myself. Like when Nick would say things, I'm like, wait, so is God real? Like, what do you mean? Is Jesus real? Wait, is church like? And so once I started like this podcast really made me start pulling my threads of what I thought were my religious beliefs. And I started really opening myself up to a lot of things. Like I started opening myself up to other religions. I finally told myself that like I don't believe in the Christian, Judea, God, Christ figure in that exact, you know, Holy Trinity. That's not, I don't believe in like heaven and hell in that way. It was really hard for me to get to that place. And so part of that was like exploring a lot of new feelings, and one of those was tarot. I got really into the idea of being able to kind of manage myself and my mental health and being able to like have a little bit of control. That, you know, the questions that I was asking God for such a long time, I was like, I could just ask myself. What if I just had talked to myself about it?
And you are asking God when you do that.
Well, because now my belief in God is different. I know that I'm part of God. And God is part of me.
And the Trinity, I have to say, like the Trinity is real. It's just not in the way we've been taught.
Exactly.
Well,
There is-
I think people misunderstand that. Like the way that I was taught the Bible was literally.
Yeah.
Literally, there is a Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, three people. They are
Right.
like literally they are three entities. Literally, you know, Jesus came back like every story in the Bible, even though the entire Bible is parables by Jesus.
Yeah.
They're taught.
Well, not the entire.
No,
you know, the New Testament.
Yeah, the New Testament.
No, and I'm not
the
trying to be
faith
on
of-
your case. I'm
yeah.
only doing it because you know what the people in the comments will say. You said the whole. You know what I mean?
No,
I'm having your back.
I'm talking about my church specifically. Yeah. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and our belief is that you have to accept Christ into your life, which is in the New Testament,
Or you will burn in hell forever.
Or you will burn in hell for eternity. And you have
true.
to also get baptized. So baptism is your public witness to people that you accepted Christ into your life, and that washing of your sins.
I have a
in
question.
That way.
In your church, because in some churches there's a belief that you have to be baptized in water and fire.
No.
Okay, so
No, that was a lot of work.
That
We
was
wouldn't
my
have done
church for show.
and
that's
Covenant
why.
Love-
That's why I say
Covenant Love was that way
crazy,
too.
because to me we're like, you gotta do something else.
It's like you have to be baptized. Were you gonna say something, Alex?
Well, how do you get baptized in fire?
Oh, I'll tell you.
Explain that to me.
Yeah.
Spirit.
So they, you know, there's like the anointing oil that they use. They
Wait. Is
pour
it just the Office episode where you have to run across the hot full?
No.
coals?
They pour oil all over you and they set you on fire.
No,
That
they
is not
don't.
true.
Yeah.
Dude, you are lying to me.
100%.
That is not true, bro.
It's real.
I went to a fire baptized church. That is not true.
I know.
You are
What
not
is that?
Prince. You are not Prince Zuko, dude.
The concept of it though is that like the Holy Ghost is a fire.
Yeah.
It's like it lights your soul on fire.
Literally.
So they say baptized by fire.
Yeah,
like,
it's not a literal fire.
No,
It's
it's,
a
accepting the Holy Spirit.
Is it
And
like
then you're
a
like
ceremony? Like, do you light
No,
a
no,
fire?
it's not. No, the fire baptism part is. So here's how it is from a Pentecostal perspective.
Yeah, I don't. We
You're
don't do
baptized
this.
in water. That's when you're like you're saved. You're like you become a Christian. You
Yeah.
know, like actual baptism. And then it's like they believe in this process called sanctification, where over time you're like purging yourself from like non-Christian worldly things, and then eventually you get to the point to where you're baptized by the fire of Holy Ghost. And I'm not trying to. This is gonna sound so bad. I'm not trying to be mocking. I'm not trying to be
No,
this,
I'm
that, or the other.
asking genuinely.
The belief here is essentially that you become possessed by the Spirit of the Holy
Spirit.
Ghost. It is a
I didn't grow up in a
possession.
church where we talked about like spirits in that way. Like tongues was kind of highly debated in my church. So we always had like a view of like, well, that's just a lot. That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
But I think part of like where we were going with that was that the idea of Christ and the things in the Bible were like
Literally. Yeah.
literal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was the idea that now I had so much room for interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like crazy to me. And for the last couple years, it's been like, well, what do I do with all this room for interpretation? Because I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to just say, well, I don't know. That's not how it works.
you still have a feeling that something is there.
You're drawn to it,
You
right?
have a feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that draw is like that intuition, that psychic ability, the feeling, the connecting,
which you are
with the
dripping
whole.
with.
Yeah.
You know,
The
I got
art-
the psychic drip.
The art, psychic drip. I like that. That's the next
The
phase after
psychic
New Age
drip.
drip is the
Yeah.
psychic drip.
I think it was the ability to not. I got into meditation. That was
Yeah.
a part of it. You know, tarot started last year when my birthday. I just picked up a tarot deck last year.
Yeah,
and
I was with you.
Yep, we went to this cute little shop downtown, and I got my tarot deck, and I was like, it's something I've always wanted to do, and I finally have an opportunity and the funds to purchase one, and it's been such a fun, and it's been more and more things.
We get this tarot deck, and I shit you not, within a few days, we wake up in the morning and I'm at my computer like groggy, like working or whatever. It's
I don't know where you're going with
It's like
this.
8 or 9 in the morning. Casey rushes into the room where I'm working and stuff, and for an hour straight just starts unloading on me about like Solomon, the Seal of Solomon, the origin of tarot, all this stuff. And my jaw was on the floor. I was like, where is this coming from?
I have this friend Val who I love dearly.
Shout out Val.
Shout out Val. Valley, love Valley.
Love Valley.
Val was telling me, I said, how do you know these things? We were just talking about like psychic abilities, like things when, you know, and they said, you just know.
You just know.
And that I was like, it took me a minute to kind of sit on it, but that feeling, the reason why I was researching, and I was like, well, how do you learn? You're like, you just do. You just, and you know that, Ryan. You know that so well. Like, it's literally a craving. You get the idea, and you want to see it through. You have
to know more.
And that's something I
wanna
wanted to
know.
comment on too. I just wanted to give like a little, like, Casey is very gifted with tarot, and from seeing her like journey with this in the last year and like being one of her guinea pigs to do readings on. By the way, they've been spot on every single time.
Every time.
Thank you.
And my point is like, I do believe wholeheartedly, and ironically, even the Bible hints at this in the New Testament. It's talking about how each of the disciples have different gifts and abilities and in the Spirit. But I do genuinely, with all of my heart, all of my mind, all of my soul, and all of my crazy ass experience with this wild double life I've lived, I have come to understand that everybody has different potential for different spiritual faculties.
Oh,
like for
100%.
example, where Casey,
the fruits of the Spirit, which you
the
learn
fruits
about
of the
in Bible.
Spirit, yeah, that's what they call it in the Bible.
The thing, there's a lot of things in Christianity that are right.
For sure.
Right? There's
For sure.
a lot of things, like there are fruits of the Spirit. There are things that people are blessed with. It's just the idea of taking it literally is where I personally, and I'm not saying anybody else, I think people get it wrong, is where they're like, you literally have this gift and you have to do this with it. It's like sometimes there's room for interpretation, and I think I think that room for interpretation has been like the biggest joy in my life, and I think it's been the biggest thing that has released me of my anxiety, is like letting go of all the fear that I had around life,
the guilt,
and that started with mushrooms. That really was the first thing that did it for me. I started.
Yeah.
Well, I actually want to step back and say, because this is something I'm a big advocate for, was that started with actually getting help for it. Nick, I was at a really bad point in my depression, and I told Nick, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. This is not how people are supposed to exist. I mean, I'm a very emotional person, but when I'm not like medicated, which I take medication now for my mental illness.
Same.
When I'm not medicated, I cry every day. I have a hard time existing. I can't get out of bed. Like, it's hard. So, you know, the first step for me was accepting that, like, you know, sometimes Christ can't fix everything. And that was the mentality up to this. Like, if there's pain you have, you give it over to Christ and he'll fix it for you. I was like, I need to take this into my own hands. And I'm so grateful for Nick, because Nick actually took the wheel and said, I'm going to go get you a doctor's appointment. And I got on medication. That was what the right choice for me was at the time. And then I started, you know, experimenting with weed. That was the first, you know, entry gate for me. And then mushrooms was the next one. Mushrooms was like the first time where I really realized I'm holding myself back. And not the first experience I had with mushrooms. I always have an experience with mushrooms at the end of it where I say, oh, I learned something new about myself. And the first time I did it was actually on our 10-year anniversary, which was so cool.
Yeah.
It was the 10-year mark of us knowing each other and starting dating.
That's
And
profound.
I know. And I told Nick, I was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this now.
Yeah.
The mark of a decade.
profound.
We're turning over a decade in our lives together, and we're saying we're starting a new leaf. And the thing I learned about myself was we were walking outside, and I was tripping. And
Same.
I needed a breath of air.
Yeah.
And I said, Nick, and if you want to judge me for doing this, that's on you. I think that this was my own experience, and I'm so grateful I had this. But I told Nick, I was like, I was acting up and being goofy, and he's like, oh, what if somebody sees you? Like, chill. And I was like, that's the problem. I'm always thinking, what if somebody sees me?
What if somebody judges me?
And I said, what if I just stopped caring about what people
honestly,
thought?
I remember you telling me that y'all did it, and then we had been taught. Actually, it was like shortly after you did that you were on my case about doing the podcast. Shortly after you did the mushroom, it was about a month later.
It honestly
when you were like, dude,
unlocked
we
our
should
life.
make a podcast. And that's what I want to say about mushrooms is like, first of all, I do not recommend them recreationally. I don't believe that it's a thing that it's a very, very spiritually significant medicinal. Like you should not be. Shame on anybody out there who's grabbing handfuls of mushrooms as some like not knowing what they're doing, just going with some random crowd.
It can be dangerous,
altering the pathways of perception in their brain. What I want to tell people is mushrooms are a very significantly spiritual thing that I am telling you now, if you take enough of them, it will literally open doorways in your mind to where you are thinking of things from a perspective that you cannot in a normal state of mind achieve. And that sounds weird. What I mean is you might be stuck in a pattern of thinking all day, every day that's holding you back. It is this limiting, self-conscious, traumatic belief that is literally just like holding you hostage. When you take the mushrooms, it unlocks that door and opens it, and you're like, oh my God, like you're feeling the feelings that are trapped down inside that are holding you back. It makes you feel them. It makes you feel them very powerfully.
It asks you to view yourself as a stranger too.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it disconnects you from all the things that you're normally, you're viewing your life out of this very specific window. And the moment that you take the mushrooms, you kind of dissolve that sense of the window, right?
Yeah.
And you're sitting, I told Nick, because this was an experience we had later on where we were sitting, and I said, I feel like I'm sitting above a diorama of myself.
Yeah.
I'm not physically, I'm not tripping out, like seeing myself from above. I'm saying that the way that I'm speaking about myself and the views that are coming into my mind and the opinions that I'm forming right now or understanding about right now is all from an outside perspective. I'm watching myself down as like a higher self and saying, oh, look at you. Wait, why are you doing that?
You'd be happier if you didn't worry about that.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Why are you so stressed out? Oh my God.
Duncan Trussell explains it almost the exact same way, except I think he was
Shout out Duncan. He's been on the show.
Oh my God. Shout out Junkin.
Junkin. Shout out Junkin.
Junk.
Shout out Junkie.
Yeah.
Junkie, that's my wife.
Yeah.
I love junk.
Yeah. No, he talks about the same thing. Like, I think he was talking about acid at the time, but like he literally felt like he was over himself, observing himself and being like, look at him. He's so worried.
Yeah. It makes you feel small, and not in a bad way. It makes you feel small in a
comforting way.
In a comforting way. It's like, oh, this is so
You think
stupid.
about things from a higher
Why was I
perspective.
stressing about the dishes? Why was I stressing about this person's opinion on me? Like, there's so much more to life that I'm missing out on by letting material things, which is what the church I think understands but doesn't get right, is the material things, the worldly things,
the attachments,
are the worries. Those things that you're like letting bound your soul, right? You're not allowing yourself to elevate or rise to this higher position because you're bound by the anxiety, the worry, the fear that I'm not doing enough. That's the worldly thing. Because if you look at it like in the actual, like the non-literal translation, heaven and hell is both on earth. It's just the experience
it's a mindset.
And what ties you to hell, what's going to damn you to hell, is not the worldly possessions. It's the worldly feelings, the lower vibrations, the things that tie you to the low
Fear.
Yeah, it's a fear and love.
It's your attachments to things that are based through fear.
Yes, and when I let go of that fear, my life has changed, and it changed through not only seeking the mental health that I needed and getting on antidepressants. That was something that was very necessary for me. I had a very big fear of getting on antidepressants because I had a bad experience. That changed my life. Seriously, if you are questioning, and want to take the time when I have a platform to say it. If you are questioning, like, why do I feel this way every day when I wake up? Talk to your doctor.
For
Just
sure.
Get help, because it does not have to be that way.
Yeah.
For
you
sure.
know, people are not born to feel like that all the time. And I'm telling you, on the other side of it, it is so great.
It's worth it. And you deserve...
Life is amazing now, because
Yeah.
I took the time to say I don't deserve to live like this. I want to be happier. And I'm going to put my fear aside. And I know that this is a scary thing to put yourself out there and say, I gotta address the problem in the room. But my life is transformed
It's
because
so
of it.
worth it.
And it was scary. There's so many times when in the process of getting my mental health in check where I was terrified and I wanted to give up and I didn't want to do it anymore. But I was able to say this weekend, I feel like I'm in a place where I'm coming to peace in my life. The anxiety is now coming to peace in my life. It took me, 2 years on medication, 3 years of really working on myself fully every day, committed to changing.
Meditating. I mean, you meditate almost every night.
I have a lot of things that I do for myself mentally.
Yeah.
So, that fear, the thing that I was taught and raised to be constantly afraid, was the thing that was killing me. It was killing me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I opened up to tarot, when I opened up to myself and said, you know what, I'm me. This is who I am. I'm so scared of being myself. I'm just gonna start really indulging in myself.
Yeah.
Just saying, fuck it. Like, what do I want? What do I want to do? What do I want to ask? What questions do I need to know? And my life has changed since then. It
Yeah.
really has. So if you're feeling that way, take it seriously. Don't put it inside and say, I'll handle that later. That feeling's there for a reason. You ask those questions for a reason, because you want something better.
It boils down to taking care of yourself.
It does.
And loving yourself. A lot of people, like, that always sounded foreign to me. Love yourself. What does that mean? Honestly, and I learned this from you. Bless you. Honestly, I would be a fucking nightmare of a person if I never met you. 1,000%.
Nick was a different person when we met, and I think Nick has grown so much emotionally, and I'm not going to take credit for your growth, but I will say that I have been there through a lot of phases in your life, and I am so proud of who you are as a person, and I'm so proud that you have a platform now, because, you maybe 4 years ago, I would be a little afraid for you to give advice to people. I'm not saying,
I would too, honestly.
and I was married to you 4 years ago, So
You saw the potential in me.
I've always seen the potential in you.
Aw.
I've always seen it. I've
No,
known.
but it seems so foreign. Like, what does that mean to love yourself? And honestly, you put it to me this way: is it's like, would you think these things and say these things about your best friend? Would you think that your best friend's not good enough? Would you tell your best friend that they are not worthy, that they're not good enough, that they don't deserve to get help?
Or like specifically, and I put it in the terms of like your niece, who's a child, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I
That's
said.
right.
I said, and I tell myself this every day too. When I look in the mirror, and if I think, God, you look fat, or why are you wearing that? Would I say that to my niece if she was standing in front of me?
Right.
Absolutely not.
So why are you saying that to yourself?
Because I know that's not good.
How are you going to say that to yourself? You're literally bullying yourself. You're tearing yourself down. Like,
that voice inside of you is that fear that's trying to make you doubt yourself. And so tarot is, for me, a way for me to put that power back into my hands and say, I already know what's going on. There's no fear here. I got the fucking answers.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Well, how would you? Why does tarot work? Like, that's what I've been meaning to ask.
Yeah.
Why is it real? Why is it
think we should-
effective?
I think it's effective. Here's the thing. I was telling Alex this. He said, if I went off of tarot, and we can debunk tarot, do whatever we want to do. It's not that tarot is real. It's a tool, just as anything else. It's a playing card game. It's not magical. Like, people, when I talk about tarot sometimes and I hand them my tarot deck, they're like, oh, can I touch it? Oh, can I handle it? Like, is it? And I'm like, no, yeah, it's cards. It's like, it's the same if I handed you like Cards Against Humanity. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
It's the intention that you put into it, right? So it's real because I made it real. It's real because you made it real. It's real because you gave the time for yourself to say, I'm going to really get something out of this.
what you're saying is the magic is not in the cards.
No.
The magic is in us.
Yes.
But there's got to be more there. I mean, like the sequence of the symbolism and the numerology.
And then that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of views on that. And when I'm talking about tarot, I want to make it very clear that like there's a lot of differing views about tarot. Tarot's been around for a very long time. And I think it'd be cool to get into the history. I have a little bit of notes Oh, am I?
You got some stray tears.
Yeah, I know. We're talking about emotional person, right? I think that's also part of why I was so drawn to tarot for me is like I've always been this emotional well. And so being able to emotionally connect to people through the randomness of drawing a card, it's like I could tell you these things about yourself, right? Because I feel it. When I meet you, when you talk, I know these things. That's just how I feel. I can pick up on those emotions. But the tarot, for me personally, like kind of puts the context. It's like, yeah, I could say you're struggling with something, but if you pull the card and you see that you're struggling with something, that's the magic that you get out of tarot.
I have an interesting thing that I'd like to do really quick. Alex, you have had quite a few.
Yeah, Alex is like literally my biggest fan. When it
Alex,
comes to tarot.
you've had probably, I don't know, upwards of 10 readings by now from Casey.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you what your, just so that we get an outside perspective of someone who regularly gets readings from Casey. Like, how does it feel? Like, what do you get from it? That kind of stuff.
You're putting me on the spot here.
Yeah,
Yes, I am.
Alex.
Yes.
Yeah. So
We were just talking about this, so feel it.
and I cannot recall having a tarot reading from anybody else. Like, I think you were the first person to give
your
me
cherry.
a reading. There you go. That's one way to put it.
Popped your Terry.
Ryan.
This
I
dude's-
can't come back from that.
that.
He's so good with wordplay. Pop your
I'm
Terry.
just good with Playboy.
That was great.
Jesus. All
Yeah,
right.
so she popped your Terry, and then what?
Yeah. So, and I also think like, I don't know. It seems like, well, I guess we don't meet up all the time.
No.
Right.
But every time you guys come, I basically get a reading.
I bring my deck to read for tarot.
I want
Alex,
one
that's all I
after
do.
the episode, by the way. I'm booking you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I pretty much bullied Casey into bringing her deck every time.
Yeah, no, honestly, I appreciate the shit out of you because I think that like I've been able to get confident in tarot because of that. Because Alex has believed in me since day one.
We love Alex.
Alex has been my number one fan. He has always been supportive of me.
Well, and it's because these pulls are blowing my mind. That's what's happening.
That's the
They
point.
really
Yeah,
are.
talk about it. Talk about
And
it.
my life, like, and I guess it just moves so quick, but like I'm in such a different spot emotionally. Not that I'm ever really emotional.
You are. You can be.
Mentally, physically, and like, and every time you guys come, which is usually every other weekend or every
Usually,
third
yeah.
weekend, it's always different. But I get these readings, and it's just like, wow. And the cards, like when I pull, it seems they always connect. The cards connect to one another, and it's very themed. Like it's almost like there's no coincidence there. It's not that I'm pulling these random cards from all over the place that don't really have anything to do with each other. They always seem to tie into one another, and they're usually spot on. And I think a recurring theme that we're seeing is the emotional state of myself
Yes.
or lack thereof.
Alex needs to. Alex is my fellow Virgo, which I think that's why me and Alex connect in that way. And so I know how Alex works on the surface because we both have the same kind of, molds. We're both, even though we're very different people.
Sure, yeah.
But Alex is very meticulous,
Well,
and he
and-
needs to get emotional.
And we both married Nick in this life or a past life.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Vincent Jenna,
Shout out Vincent.
not
who
even
revealed to us
mad.
beyond the veil that Alex and Nick were married in a past life.
Yes.
So Casey, is it us or does Nick just really like Virgos? Or no,
It's
no.
weird because Virgos and Geminis, like, if
Hey.
you look at the charts, are not supposed to get along.
Yeah.
But hold on, let's point the finger back on him. Does he really like Leos? Because
Yeah, what the fuck?
his girlfriend is a Leo and I'm a Leo.
And you were just talking about how much you want to serve him. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my
sounds
God.
like-
Yeah, you want to be his assistant.
He's like, I want to be your assistant.
So Alex, when
Yes,
you
sir.
are, because typically what Casey does is she will let whoever she's doing a reading for choose the cards.
Yeah. Mhm.
Which is it's whatever. But when you do that, do you get a feeling like it is because of my intuition that I am choosing these cards, and that is why these cards mean so much to me and to each other?
So the very beginning, I get to hold the deck, and so I'm thinking of what I want out of it, and then putting my energy into the deck of cards, and then the cards pick themselves.
Right.
Yeah, I don't pick the cards. They're like, hey, It's me.
That's
I
interesting.
ask people not to think about it because that's part of it. Is like if you're sitting like, which card is the right one? You already missed.
Just
the point.
feel it, yeah.
Just grab the first one you feel.
It
Because
sounds so
honestly,
like
it is.
it sounds so like weird, but that's truly the case.
You just don't let yourself have that moment to like even think about it. You just grab the first one, and usually it's crazy. Like I love this story and when people ask me about tarot, like is tarot real? I'm like, I mean, sure, but sometimes there are things that happen that are a little spooky, and you're like, wait, hold on, there is something here. Because I was telling Jeremy, because he asked me this exact question. He said, and you guys know Jeremy. Shout out Jeremy.
Shout out Jeremy.
Shout out Jeremy. He's
Shout
in
out
the other
Jeremy.
room. Jeremy is my
brother.
bud. I love Jeremy. We
the
get
best.
each other very well.
Yeah.
And Jeremy was asking me about tarot, and I was explaining to him, if I draw, and I'm just thinking of this on the spot, we're just talking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm not a tarot expert. I don't know every card off the top
I was
of my
going to
head.
offer you something because I feel like what time are we at, Alex?
We're like just over an hour, Ryan.
I was going to offer this to you. This is your decision right now, live.
Yes.
We could
I already decided.
do come back for a whole tarot episode if you'd like, or we could just keep going and no rules.
I mean, if you wanted
Whatever you're comfortable
I feel
with.
like I'm here right now.
Okay,
Yeah, let's
cool,
do it.
cool,
We
yeah.
could just cut it in half
Yeah.
if
For
we
sure.
want to.
For sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean,
That's
that's
fine.
up to y'all.
No,
Let's do it.
Casey,
Let's do it.
it's
But I
up
feel
to
like
you.
I'm on a roll.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
It's up to you.
know.
It's up to you.
We'll keep
It's
it
up to
rolling.
you.
So I'm talking to Jeremy, and he's asking the same thing. And I'm saying, I'm just making up a thing on my head. I'm like, Jeremy, if I draw the Six of Cups, right? And I read the Six of Cups, and I read the meaning to it, I'm going to take a different meaning out of it if you read the Six of Cups, right? Because where I'm at in my life and where you're at in your life, totally different places.
Yeah, different experiences on the inside.
Yeah, tell me why. Spread out the cards. The first card Jeremy pulled was the fucking Six of Cups, dude.
Which means
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head.
But it's just insane. Like
And when it was talking about, I believe it was talking about specifically nostalgia. That's what the Six of Cups, if I'm not mistaken, if somebody wants to fucking correct me, do it. I believe that the card was talking about nostalgia, which is like, because it's an emotional card. Cups
Right.
is emotion. And we'll talk
Okay.
about cups a little bit.
Okay.
But for him, it was talking about getting in touch with these feelings from like childhood, and it was talking about specific. And he's like, I've been going through that so much lately, where like I've just wanted to connect to my past a lot lately. I've been feeling very drawn to my past, and like
Alex just looked it up.
Yeah, Casey, you're spot on there.
Hey, let's go.
God,
Upright Six of Cups.
so good to be me.
Revisiting the past, childhood memories, innocence, and joy.
Yeah, and I didn't know that when I said Six of Cups in the example. It was just like a number that pulled out. You're just talking.
Yeah, no, it's
if
random.
you said
I've seen you
if
do
I
it
said
a dozen
if a
times
four
or
is
more.
four of hearts like right now out of a deck of cards, whatever. It was just the fact that we were having this conversation. I was trying to contextualize tarot for Jeremy in the form of like, what if you just pulled this random card? And he pulled that random
pulled
card.
the exact
and
card.
it was what he needed to hear at that time.
Come on.
And every time I've had a reading with somebody, it's not that I'm like, oh, I'm psychic. I'm not pulling the cards. I'm
Right.
not doing anything besides reading the
You're just
information.
interpreting.
You're
I'm
interpreting.
just interpreting it because I'm emotionally intuitive. I have that ability through going through my own emotional valleys, through going in the trenches of that, through being in that emotional space. I'm able to feel those things and say, oh, I see where this is coming from.
I just had a thought to say this, by the way. Like, for those who have not seen Casey's art,
You have.
the moment. Well,
you
I
have
mean,
your
other than podcast art.
Yeah.
That's like we said, hey, come up with this, and this. I'm saying your art.
Yeah.
If you see Casey's art, you will immediately, without a doubt, be like, yeah, she's
brain-
she's tapped into something. Her brain's on another level.
It's somewhere else.
It's somewhere
Your
else.
mind
It's
is-
on another level.
Yeah.
And you're very gifted artistically,
Thank you.
which I, we talk about this all the time on the show. People who tend to be right-brained in that power, that's the curse of Casey. That's the curse of Nick, the curse of whatever, us like artsy
Yeah.
people. We're very right-brained, very emotionally intuitive, very expressive, creative, although I have a lot of trouble expressing myself. That's a whole nother topic.
We're
But
getting rid of that.
I want to say though that Ryan, you are very expressive. You just don't. I think maybe you just need to recontextualize it for yourself because
Yeah.
you are able to very much tell how you feel. I think it's just like you think that your strengths are somewhere else. You are a voice. Like that is your strength, as being the voice of things.
I don't mean to make it about me, but what I was just is I genuinely struggle with like expressing myself truly because when I've done that in the past, it's always led to great pain because when I express
That's
myself
trauma,
truly,
that's fear.
I've seen so many thousands and thousands and thousands of entities from beyond the veil that when I tell this to people, the weight of me being true to them, it crushes their soul and they freak out. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just they can't handle it. Normies who are not, they can't handle it. They can't
And
handle
that's
me
why
being
people
me.
give you such a hard time, because whenever people can't handle this, I want to tell this story very briefly. One of the biggest things for my mental health was having somebody who didn't know me tell me this, is that sometimes people just can't handle you.
Yeah.
Some people are not ready for you. You know, it's not always about lowering yourself to the expectations of others. Sometimes when you walk in a room, there are people who are going to be felt bad by your
energy or whatever.
They're going to feel less than, because they themselves have not built themselves up to enough. They want to tear people down to their level.
Yeah.
So their goal is going to be to chop you down to get where they are.
Yeah.
And she said, that is not an expression of you. That is not something that reflects back on how you are as a person. You don't need to change. You need to be exactly who you are, and accept that when you walk into a room, some people are going to want to tear you down. She said, you are
that's a
only
good
given
point.
this cup, this emotional wealth, which is, we were talking about cups, this emotional wealth, she said, and when people pour toxic negativity into that, the expectation can never be that you're going to pour something back out that's positive, right? So when people tear into you, you're not going to actually change. That's why there's no benefit to like tearing people down or really pointing out those flaws and saying like, whoa, you fucking
You
suck,
this,
dude.
that, and the other.
Yeah, because the idea is that you're putting in evil and toxic and hate, and what is that person going to give you back? You pour the cup, what are you going to pour out? It's not going to change. There's nothing magic there.
Yeah.
So she's like, you need to be filling your cup up with these positivity. You need to be
love,
building that love up for yourself.
Self-affirmation.
Yes, that cup needs to be filled so that nobody can put that in your cup.
Yeah.
If your cup is overflowing with joy and love for yourself, there's no availability for someone to pour toxic stuff in your cup. It's going to pour right out. Guess what? You're already filled. I don't need that.
Yeah.
And I think that conversation for me was like, oh shit, it's not me. I don't need to change. I don't need to be different. I need to be exactly who I am, and everybody else needs to just be fucking ready for it.
Yeah.
Be ready for me. I'm here.
Yeah.
And so I think in tying that back with everything is like the art, that intuition, my now like tapping into my artistic ability. I gave up on art for years. I didn't want to do it because I thought that's a pipe dream. Like, people don't make money off art. I got to find a career. And like the moment that I just gave up, which also coincided with the mushrooms, I decided to make my business about a month after the mushrooms happened. I said, I'm going to start.
That checks out by my memory. It's like,
started my
not that
business
I
in-
don't believe you, but
No.
that's blowing my mind.
No, I started
wow.
Casey Mang Designs in December, right after. I mean, I was doing commissions at the time, but I put my focus into, this is what I'm going to do for the next year. And I did it for a year, and it was amazing. Like, it was hard. It wasn't like financially amazing, but it was amazing because I was able to find out stuff about myself.
You
Because
stretched yourself beyond your limits.
I finally said, fuck it.
Yeah,
Guess what? Artists
yeah.
don't make any money. Okay, well, I'm not going to make any money for a while, but I'm going to be fucking happy. And like, I've done so much.
It's
I've done so
nurturing.
much. I've made
Yeah.
so much. And then looking into my astrology at the time, it was like, your goal in life is to put the things that you have in your head out there into the physical
Manifest
world.
them
to make them
as a
real.
visual
And they
representation,
said,
yeah.
preferably through art. And I said, I just really got to try to do this. I really got to try.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But just to finish the thought I was saying, so it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like I was cursing you guys.
No,
The
no.
curse of Casey, the curse of what the curse is having a right brain that is so powerfully functional that sometimes the left brain lacks a little bit, and that's
Yeah.
where I believe comes in with the daily struggles. I'm bad for this. I'm bad for like not being able to always function on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean?
And that's why I feel that peace now, because I finally, this past
Balance.
year, it's the yin and it's the gray,
balance.
right? That has been the part of my life that I've enjoyed most, is going from this mentality of a black and white to this beautiful shade of gray, where it's like there's so much room for things to be both artistic and structured.
Yeah.
And I can be an artist and I don't have to live in like squalor. I can make money. I can be successful. I can
And
do
you're doing
things.
it.
I can build up a business that's actually really good just by my own abilities, and I can still be creative. And like, there isn't a, you can only do one thing or you can do the other. You know, there's no bad or good. Even church teaches you that literal definition of it. It's very much gray. That's the idea, is the balance of the both.
Yeah.
And so that has brought so much to my life, is just being like, whatever, we'll find that medium place, and we'll be happy, and we'll feel at peace at that point.
Yeah.
What do you feel about specifically tarot that draws you in?
What really drew me in the first place was like the draw to art. I really just like the art on the cards.
Oh yeah.
I've always been really into creepy things.
Yeah.
Ryan and I have really connected over like recent years.
Y'all were gushing about horror movies last night, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting there like, I can't really contribute.
That's
to
what I'm
this
saying. Like
conversation.
low key, like I'm training Casey to be my protege in like top horror films.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah, she all the ones I recommend her, she loves.
I have a
for
picky
sure.
taste though, because I'm a big movie connoisseur. Part of my Christian upbringing is that I was exposed to no films, and that's also because I think like I grew up with a parent with ADHD who like didn't like to sit still for films, so I don't blame.
Oh,
you know,
when we met, she hadn't seen
Anything.
Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters,
Anything.
nothing.
So
which
my
was great for me.
joy in my
Yeah.
adult life has been getting into movies, but I've always been drawn to kind of like, I don't know,
Macabre.
a little dark. I've
Yeah.
always had a little bit of an edge, and I think tarot kind of always seemed a little spooky, and so I was like, whatever, why don't we try it out?
Yeah,
And
when we met,
it's not that at all. It's
right.
not.
It's not.
It's not spooky
But
at all.
when we met, your favorite artist was Alex Pardee.
Yeah.
And Alex Pardee, if you don't know, is all like extremely vibrant, colorful, beautiful colors, but the pictures are like brutal,
Like
and
monsters.
gory and scary
That's
and
my
whatever.
shit.
That like describes Casey.
I may look like a little cartoon character, but in reality, I love like just something a little wicked.
The horror.
I do.
The horror.
I like it.
The horror.
And so I think, and not that tarot has horror in it, but like you see in TV and movies and like places
They portray it as
it's
evil, like a Ouija board.
The devil card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's literally
the
held.
hanged man.
It's held on the same regard as like a Ouija board.
And that's a very common misconception of like these things are just tools. Like tarot was a playing card game. It is
Literally.
literally associated with every card of the deck of a deck of cards. Like it's
Yeah.
the same number of cards plus your major arcana.
If you like had all the stuff like the suits and the numbers and stuff memorized, you could do tarot with a normal deck.
Yeah, 100%. You
Yeah.
would just be doing minor arcana. So
Right.
the way that a tarot deck is broken up is it's a deck of cards, right? It's like I wrote the number down. I think it's like 78 total. And basically, it's your regular standard deck of cards, and then you have 5 suits. So rather than having, say, pentacles, I said pentacles. Rather than having like spades, hearts, diamonds, and whatever clubs, the suits in tarot are going to be cups, wands, swords, and pentacles. Cups associated with the heart. Cups are going to be your emotions. So when you draw a cup card, you're looking at like emotional wealth. Like I said, think about holding everything in your hand like a cup. That same metaphor we were talking about earlier. And that's also like really drawn with that.
Wait, did you say there are 5 suits in tarot?
Well, the 5th suit's all the major arcana, the trump cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So when you're thinking cups, think of like water signs. If that's something that you're really into, if you're into astrology, they're going to be associated with the water signs, so like Pisces. And this is all matters of the hearts and emotions. And then you go into pentacles, which are going to be like materialistic things. And that's what Nick was talking about, the sign of Solomon earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Is,
The seal of Solomon.
He would use pentacles in his things for protection, and that was, dark magic. That's black magic.
And a pentacle is just an upside down pentagram. Well, I mean, it's really the opposite. But
No, it's the 5-pointed star pointing up. It's the
that's what
original version of.
That's why I said
Yeah,
upside
pentagram.
which is
down.
not an evil symbol.
So
Right.
the reason why pentagrams are pentagrams is because the sign of a pentacle was a sign of warding and protection over physical belongings, right? So you're like your ancient Wiccans and like people in the countryside would be using these to put into their, belongings. This star with a circle around it. It was a seal worn on people's clothing.
They put it on their doors too. We have a neighbor that has one on their door.
Yeah, the pentacles is like always a sign of physical, tangible, material things. And so whenever the pentacle sign is very common in those like things, when the Roman Catholic Church was coming through they wanted to reclaim the signs. So like, for instance, the god's trident turned into the devil's pitchfork. And the sign
pentacle
of the
turned into the pentagram.
The pentagram, the inverted devil. When
Right.
in reality, it's actually the sign of Venus, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
abundance,
Divine
right?
feminine.
Star of the
And-
feminine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this.
It also
it's-
represents consciousness.
So pentacles is like this sign of protection. So when you draw it in tarot, you're looking at like usually protection over your physical assets. You're looking at like like material gains. You're looking at maybe a promotion at work or something happening in your life. And that's associated with earth signs.
I want to cut in right there on the Pinnacle talk. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is, for those who don't know what that is, it's a secret society that practices mystical knowledge, like you could say like magic or whatever, but not from like a dark perspective, but from like an ancient Hermetic, like, you know, a traditional Egyptian occulted magic, you know, like what they were doing in the ancient past.
Yeah.
And they have a ritual called the Lesser Banishing of the Pentagram, which is where, I don't remember the exact rules of the ritual, but it's something about like acknowledging the angels of the 4 cardinal directions, and it has something to do with the symbol, and it's to ward off evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lesser
It's a
Banishing of the
protection
Pentagram.
sign. Yeah,
I don't
and-
practice this. It's just fascinating.
That's
yes.
that was the conversation that I was talking to Nick about Solomon at the time, when he was like, where's this all coming from? It was I wanted to know, why is the pentacle in tarot? And so I started looking into pentacles, and that's when we got into like the Lesser Seal of Solomon, which is, you know, like I said, pretty evil. There's some dark magic there. It's all about sacrifice and like transmission of souls, but
And like enslaving demonic forces.
yeah, they would use these symbols over protection during these rituals, which, you know, totally different thing. But that sign comes up in, that's going to be associated with like fruits of your labor. That's also associated with diamonds, the card. So if we were using a deck of cards, that would be the diamonds, physical.
That's
wealth.
pentacles. Diamonds as pentacles? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And then that's earth symbols, which, you remember how I was saying like fruits of your labor, that like what the earth is giving back to you. Virgo's an earth sign, so Virgo's the symbol of like the harvest. Like you bring everything, all the collection of all your hard work basically is what pentacles are showing up in your life.
Cool.
And then wands, which be your next suit, that's going to be
Spades?
That's going to be associated with...
I was guessing here.
Yep. And you're thinking... I think it's actually clubs, and I don't know why.
Dang.
Yeah,
Well,
'cause-
blow me down.
Well, spades is actually swords. So swords is, we were talking about this earlier, mind and intellect. So your knowledge, like it's a lot of thinking.
That would be air sign?
That's actually,
Yes!
fine. Yep. So analysis, strategy, the pursuit of knowledge. This is also very masculine energy. I always tell, like when Alex and I would do a reading and I pull swords, I always think of the knight who's carrying his sword. This is like his pursuit. This is his goal, right? So we're thinking about how we're basically making these actions, right? It's the analysis, the looking over. It's getting to the point of something, right?
I see what you did there.
And then wands is fire sign, so that's all you, Leo King over there.
Hey, the magician.
And wands, the way that I would categorize it, because it's a little bit up into interpretation, is like the start of something new, right?
Oh, so you were talking about swords before, because I think you said
I
wands.
skipped over to swords because we were talking about air
I got
signs.
you.
Yeah, so now we're on to wands. That was swords before.
I got
That's the
you.
Point. Yeah, wands is something new. So like think about the birth of an idea, right? Creativity, inspiration, passion, drive, those kind of like burning feelings. That's why we associate it with the fire sign, that spark of life, the initial creation. That is where your wands are coming in.
Oh, wow.
So all the wands are talking about, like not Jeremy, my friend Max recently pulled the Ace of Wands, which is like literally about taking your magic wand, pointing it out in front of you and getting what you want in life. You're starting something new. So, you know, those suits come up and you could literally take a deck of cards and put them all with their associated suits and be able to draw minor arcana straight out of that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. And what we did before we actually started, we decided now that we're going to probably come back and do like a intro to tarot episode.
Well, this is kind of like tarot for beginners sort of thing. We want to do a full-fledged tarot episode.
I have a lot of questions to ask about tarot.
Yeah, we're going to do a full...
and I took a lot of time getting the history, but I mean, we've had such a fun time talking about
I know.
me. I'm just so interested.
Well, listen, we have to introduce you to the,
100%.
you know, they don't know
like
who
I
you
said,
are.
The fifth Beatle. We need to get, I need to get out there.
Yeah.
People need to know. Like you've been,
you're a part of this
I've been
team.
here the whole time. And I just need the credit now. The logo.
Give me the love. Give me the
it
credit.
love.
The art on the wall. It's you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is all stuff that was inspired by the podcast, but I think it'd be fun now to go back and on that episode, we'll talk more about the history of tarot, where it's come from.
You know what? Actually, I'm thinking bigger here. I'm thinking out of the box. We could also talk astrology because believe it or not, there was a time where you were even more into that.
Yeah.
Astrology was
And
my
you're
first
gifted at
thing
that
that got
too.
me into tarot. And I don't know everything about astrology, and I think that's great if we come back and talk about it. I think that astrology and tarot go hand in hand, and we can talk about this in that episode too. That really started with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah.
They were the first people that really like said, we're going to take astrology and really tie it into tarot. And there obviously people doing that before them, but their focus was on that. And so that's a whole different reading of tarot. I wrote down a quote before I started this episode. It's from novelist David Lindsay, where it says that truth is an assembled thing. So when it comes to tarot and anything that we're talking about, I always advise people to collect their own amount of information and find how it works for you, right? I do tarot in a very emotional way. I don't do tarot with the extent of using the cards to give definite answers. I look for the room and interpretation. I look for, my own kind of feelings to be put into it. That's what I like about it. I like knowing that I have the answers inside of me. I just have to read the card and really interpret what the answer would be. There are people who use tarot in a very specific way. I'm very new to it, so that's not me. So I always say, if this is something you're drawn to, just do your own research. Get a lot of different perspectives on tarot, and then find your own version of the tarot that works for you. Find your own version of truth. If that's something that you want to make it work, you just got to figure out, am I doing this with the intent of reading it for a horoscope? Am I associating these with each symbol? People do tarot when it's associated with the elements, like we talked about. They'll pull, seeing how many, if these cards are associated with this and they're contradicting in that way, it's a whole nother depth to it. But for me, I use it right now just to emotionally connect to other people. That's how I use it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a very obviously limited knowledge of tarot. It's just one of those things that I don't feel called to study. It's so daunting, and it's I don't have the compulsion to use it. You know what I mean?
It's a lot.
You're my tarot expert, so I'm that's all you. But the way I kind of think about it is, we've said this over and over and over. We know this is, so to speak, a matrix of consciousness, right? The stars are holding everything in place. This is a very powerful destiny thing. Everything is written in the stars, right? So the way I see tarot is it has some secret symbolism, some secret numerology behind it. The way the deck is crafted is to be able to sort of penetrate deeper into your subconscious mind, where it's a psychic field, tied to the higher reality anyway. So the answers are already inside each and every one of us.
Yeah.
Is that so? The tarot is basically just helping us.
It's a divination tool, just as if you would use a crystal pendulum, or if you would use scattering tea leaves, this is just something that people from since the 16th century have been using to just tell people's fortunes. It's just a tool. And so there is a lot of symbolism in tarot, right? Each of the numbers has their own specific meaning. Ace throughout all the minor arcana is going to show up as the beginning of something, right? Because it's the beginning of the sequence. The major arcana is all numbered because they want you to follow that sequence. So there is a lot of hidden symbolism to it, and I think that's something we could totally get in depth on it.
Please, that's the stuff I would like to know.
And I there's a lot of that hidden symbolism.
We have to talk the Crowley thing too, but we'll save that for next time.
Yeah, we're gonna save that, the kind of getting into the bits and pieces. But what we did do for this episode is that I asked the guys, because I usually do a reading with Alex, and we usually do a 3-card pool, because that's kind of your basic starter. When you're pulling cards, you're usually asking questions, right? You're looking for an answer. And when we do pools, we'll do a past, present, future, or a great starter pool that I've been enjoying is a mind, body, spirit card. So when you're pulling it, you're basically asking where I could have advice or moving forward in those paths in my life. But what I did with this pool for you guys is that we actually pulled talking about this next year of the podcast.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of both, rather than just doing something generic and saying, let's talk about the past, present, future of the podcast. I wanted to really have you guys each come up with a question.
Specific questions.
Yeah, because people say when you get into tarot, the more you get into it, you should get into the specificality of it. Get into the numbers, get into the meaning of that. But when you start out, it's going to be very intimidating.
It's daunting, yeah.
Yeah, to look at 78 cards and
Same with astrology, so daunting.
Yeah, just don't be afraid of it. Dip your toes in. The first thing I did with my tarot deck for like months when I couldn't do any readings for myself because I didn't really trust my ability to do it is I just went through the cards and looked at the art of them and I put them in a pile of, did I get a negative response to that or a positive response to that? Initial feeling. Didn't give it much thought. Looked at the card. If it made me feel bad, put it one place. And then I took all the bad cards and I read through them just to get to know it. I wanted to understand why did I have that first feeling? Like, why was the initial feeling maybe negative? And then I learned to interpret those cards so that I didn't necessarily pull them and think, ooh, not that.
Yeah.
I wanted to give myself the opportunity, and I did the same thing with the positive cards. I wanted to understand, well, are these necessarily positive? I wanted to give them an equal chance of, so rather than getting so into like the deeper hidden meanings, start off with just doing the basics, right?
Yeah.
Get to know your deck. Do an intro to your deck pool. I would highly recommend, there is a creator on Instagram who has a podcast where she talks about tarot, and I've used her as a resource a lot. Her name is Moki. She's Fayetteville native.
Yeah.
And she has a podcast called like Pastel, or well, her social is Pastel Bruja.
You know something funny? She followed me the other day.
Yeah, she's great. Dude.
Pastel
Well,
Bruja.
I think it might have been a spam account because she's now getting a little bit of things. So she had a spam account made where it was following all of her followers. But yeah, she taught like she has these things where she does. What?
I'm just like so crushed.
No, don't be crushed. Well, the only reason is I know that because I messaged her and it said following Ryan Bledsoe, and I was like, and then I realized it was a fake account.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about it. But she has a really great, like, she does a lot of intro pools where you can ask your deck questions. Like, what will I get out of doing tarot? That's a great, and then you put your card in and it'll give you an answer, right? Or, what could I learn from tarot? What could I learn from this deck? What experience? So start off basic, and then as we move on, maybe you can start doing tarot, and then when we get to the next episode, we'll talk more about like
we'll go into the deep nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah, because we're gonna have to.
But
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
But to finish it up, let's talk about the polls that we did for the podcast.
I asked each of the guys to do a pool, and
so I went first. My question.
yeah, I got them right here. So
right. I remember.
I had them go ahead and just ask questions. Nick's question and his pool for his card was, where can we improve on in the podcast?
Yeah.
And do you want me to read through all the questions or just like go through the answer, I guess?
We could just talk about what was I pulled, I don't remember the card.
He pulled the Four of Swords. So
Four of Swords?
Swords is an air sign, which is Nick's a Gemini. So there you go.
Gemini gang.
And it was specifically talking about rest and recharge. So the key word there was this yoga pose that it had mentioned, which is the pose of rest. And it was saying that we're at a time where we all are kind of needing a well-needed break to really reassess where we're all coming from and where the roots were. And it was like, just let yourself have this moment, which is so funny because Ryan and Jenny went to Europe. The holidays have been coming up. There's been weddings. There's been anniversaries.
It's been busy.
It's the holiday season.
Yeah.
We're starting that time. And so like we've all been very off of our schedule lately, the regular schedule. And it's
Of
been,
the podcast.
Yeah, we haven't recorded in like a month plus.
and it's been our thing that we've all kind of been taking our own time. And so it's just that assurance of like, oh, wow, we really did need this break. And it's also giving us the assurance as a team, all of us, we need to get back to like, what is it that we came here to do, right? It was asking us, not only do you need to rest and recharge, but it's asking for a reset. Like say, where was this original intention at, right?
Yep.
Look at where you started from. Look at where you're at now. Ask yourself what you can be doing. So I think that was a great piece of advice for us because you were asking, you just wanted to see where we can improve. And it's just saying, give yourself the time to like really do what you need to do. And then you can hunker down and jump into this next time. I think we're all at a point of rest and recharge.
No doubt. And another thing that it had talked about was like, while you are doing that resting and recharging, thinking about, like you said, like the original intentions, but also thinking and like methodically thinking about the approach going forward. And I found that so interesting because in this like month interim where we haven't been recording, I've been thinking about that kind of stuff a lot. And just how to level up the show, how to grow the show. Cause this
We're
thing
going into year 3.
Yeah, this thing is our baby, and we're like, we want it to be the best we can make it. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It's just so crazy that I happen to pull that card, and that's the exact thing I've been going through lately. And I just want to preface the next couple by saying all three of us that pulled cards pulled them in the face up direction.
Yes.
And
they were all facing up. I should have said that too.
And we all felt very compelled. Like I almost flipped the card vertically and something told me to flip it horizontally and it was faced up. And then Ryan said that he felt the same thing. When he was going to put a card, he felt his arm twitch like it wanted him to turn it a certain way. It's just like, it's pretty crazy. Okay, and so then
another thing that was really crazy, because I'm going to point this out as the artist, is like all the art was very much the same in this deck. Like the cards aren't similar, but like this specific deck, the artist chose to have all three of them in that blue and green color scheme that we use for the podcast. So it was like, It was really crazy that they were all facing upwards. Yeah. So they were all, and if you're a beginner to tarot can be interpreted if you'd like. It's, up to the person who's reading the cards. As upwards is going to give you the intention of the card. Inverted will either be in a lesser version, meaning that's like a low amount of energy, or it's a weakened amount of energy, or people will have the opposite reaction in which the meaning is inversed. Yeah. It's based on like I said, the person reading the cards is based on the deck that you're using and the interpretation of the deck. But in this case, all three of you guys did pull your cards upright, and you all pulled the exact same color scheme of the podcast.
It was all blue and green. It was all...
And this is a very colorful deck. I mean, it was crazy that they were
and there's 70 plus cards, and we pulled three that literally... Yeah.
And you all flipped them all the same way. I asked you guys to just flip them in front of me the way you feel like you need to flip them, and that's what Nick pulled, was the 4 swords facing upright. And then Ryan's question was specifically regarding projects outside the podcast, because there's a lot of stuff going on that's not necessarily Bledsoe Said So, the podcast related, but if you're not aware, Ryan's dad is working on a book right now.
Yeah, it's almost finished.
It's almost finished, and it should be coming out in December. So I think this episode will probably come out in December as well.
Yeah, that's the plan. The plan is December 1st. They do have the possibility to push it out.
Yeah, this is a big project that he's self-producing, basically. And Nick and Ryan are also working on Twiceborn, which is a big music project. It's been a lot of heart and soul put into that. And there's a lot of things that the energy where we've been kind of putting other outlets, they've been going other places. And so Ryan was like, I want to know what the return of that is, if that's going to benefit us.
Or like more specifically, my feeling inside was like, will these things be like positive for me?
Yeah.
Will the podcast and all these other things, will they return a positivity for me or in my life?
Which Ryan was the only person who pulled a major arcana card, which is the extra cards that are added up front. We'll talk about that more when I come back. We'll do a whole thing about the Fool's Journey and major arcana. But when major arcana shows up in a reading, as opposed to minor arcana, it means like this isn't a presence that's outside of yourself. This is a bigger moment in time. Minor arcana might be a season, like we're taking a little bit of break now, trying to all readjust our schedules for the new year. So we needed that rest for a moment. But this temperance thing, which is the card that you pulled, is a major arcana, and it's saying this is something that's a big influence on this. So temperance was the photo, like the artwork is the balancing of 2 scales. You see, a scale with a big ball on it, and then there's 5 other small balls on the other side. And it's basically saying that there's balance and synergy. And it was talking about patience. And it was, Ryan basically was given from the reading saying like, there's a lot of foundational roots that you've put down, which is true. We've worked on this podcast since January of 2000.
June.
No, but we've been working on it.
Right.
Yeah, we worked on it for 6 months before we even launched it.
We worked on this podcast for 6 months before you even heard one episode.
Right, yeah, that's
because we made it a point as a team that we wanted to produce a quality product.
Yeah.
And that was...
And it shows. Like, thank God. Like, it shows. People...
And they literally were talking about that you have put down roots and you know that you've produced something of quality. Like, you know what you're doing. And all of these things are going to synergize with you. You have that foundational base, and all these things are going to bring more balance to your life. And I think it was saying, even despite all the things that are going on, which right now is a very hectic time for all of us, and I know personally you have hectic things going on, it was saying, despite all that, these things are going to synergize beautifully with what's going on because you've put so much work down. And I don't know about you, Ryan, but I felt like it kind of lessened like the stress of what's been going on lately.
Well, there was another element to it that you had read out of the book, and it was like it said something very specifically about, despite the chaos or whatever turmoil that may be going on in my life at the moment, it's a matter of like being consciously aware of my inner world as well as the outer world of my experiences and balancing them.
Yeah.
And everything's going to be all right and everything's going to synergize and be in harmony or something like that.
Yeah, and we were just having a conversation last night about how like you are in this new phase where you're trying to be like more aware of that, like being more mindful, and that will come up in Alex's card, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Which
plus the next episode we're going to talk all about that.
And it's basically just asking you to like not only know that you have the stability inside, now that reflection of stability will be on the outside too, right? You know what you're doing, right? That confidence is there. It was just saying that like these things in your life are going to unfold in front of you. Yeah. And even though we didn't pull this in the typical past, present, future sort of format, it kind of played out that way anyways, because that's what's happening right now is all of these things are starting to kind of fold in to the podcast, and it's all kind of coming together. We're really seeing a product bloom out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that was a really
It's just crazy that like you were asking how all of these things are going to benefit each other and whatever, and the word that kept coming up was synergy. The word that kept coming up in that reading was synergy, which means how things work together.
Which is what initially I was asking.
Right.
Like, will these things synergize? You know?
Right.
And,
you wanted to know, like,
but I didn't say that word.
Right.
You know?
And that's when we give these questions. They're very big. We did talk like in depth before we actually came up with a solid question. And that was why it took us so long to come to it, because Ryan was really trying to figure out the way that he wanted to phrase it, which was like, are these things going to pull together and like really
bring positivity into my life?
Bring benefit to the podcast and to us and all of, you know, it was a very vague question. We were trying to narrow it down, and the answer was like, dude, it's all fine. It's all working out. You just got to know you already made the roots, which you did.
Yeah.
That structure is already in place. You just now got to keep it all in balance.
Yeah.
And then Alex's question was the future of the societal impact of the podcast. So the way that we affect our tangible world outside of us.
Yeah. So not necessarily like my question, which was how will it affect us and the energy this will bring to us, but how are we going to affect
other people.
Externally.
Yeah. And also Ryan's was specifically talking about the things that are coming into our podcast, the things, the energy we're bringing from outside places. Whereas Alex's question was like, how is our energy going to be moving outward, right?
Yeah. Like towards the world and people.
Yeah. And Alex drew the King of Cups for that one.
Awesome card.
And it is.
Great pull.
And Cups is emotional. We talked about Cups. Those are emotional, right?
Of course, Alex pulled the emotional card.
Because I'm so emotional.
Because Alex
is
he is getting in touch with his emotional side because he needs to.
Yeah.
He needs to.
That's your journey. Right?
Alex, don't say that you're not emotional. You're just not emotional yet. Don't ever tell yourself that there's don't put a limiting belief on yourself. You might not be that person.
I was going to say I am totally in touch and I'm the most emotional person.
Wow.
It's funny because right before Alex's read, he told me that. And then all of his cards were like, you lying. He literally got the card being like, are you sure about that? The card was like...
The card was like, Cap.
It was, I'm not going to out him.
The spirits are like, bro.
But
No,
it
go
was
for it.
just
Go
as
for it.
inverted.
No,
and
you
it was
can't.
basically saying that he needs to really look at the actions and his consequences for them. Like, he was like, are you really looking at what you're doing? I'm like, Alex, you're literally telling me you're the most emotionally honest person. And I know for a fact you're not. And he's asking you to say, like, be honest with yourself. Are you doing what you're saying you're doing?
The spirits called you out, bro.
They did. They really did call him out.
They don't know what they're talking
So
about.
Alex, I see personally, Alex is on an emotional journey. Alex, when you get in touch with that emotional part of yourself, you will really access the next step of your life. You will. I know this for you.
And the listeners are dying right now because most of them like probably don't even know what he looks like. Haven't seen him on camera, and now they're in their head. They're like, "Oh man, this emotional, beautiful voice."
Oh my God.
And then they see his picture and they're like, "Oh man, he's so beautiful." And the women out there are like, "He's so emotional."
Y'all about to get 2023. You're gonna get the MILF monitor on.
Oh my God.
He's gonna get
Alex.
the third.
No, Alex is the money maker, but he's also the honey maker.
Whatever. Alex is also not very emotional, so don't think that. But he's gonna get there.
Yes.
If you want someone to cry with you, I'm not your guy.
It's me. And that's why I think it's funny that me and Alex have grown this relationship over tarot because we are both Virgos and we're the opposite emotionally.
Yeah.
I am very emotionally available.
But you're also-
Alex is an emotional dungeon. Like he is closed off. And I'm like, I'm going to get it out of you, Alex. I'm going to make you feel.
Emotional dungeon.
You are. You really put it
You
all
make the
away.
boy sound emo. He's not that bad.
Alex is emo.
He's pretty emo.
Alex is the most like posh emo boy ever. He's he's a preppy emo.
See, I wish that was on camera.
Look,
Swiping his hair to the
Peter
side.
Parker in Spider-Man 3.
To the listener, just so you know, Alex just gave himself full
Emo bangs.
Yeah. No, I don't mean to shit on you, Al. I'm not shitting on you.
No,
in any
I
way.
love it.
I just mean
I love the
that I
attention.
see your journey as somebody who is a couple years behind us in age, and I'm like, dude, all you gotta do is get in touch with your emotional self. That's the next step. That's
See, Alex, actually, let's talk for just a second. Alex is the perfect definition of an extremely functional, very healthy left brain.
yeah.
Very structured, very routine, very regimented, very like
The opposite of me.
straight up orderly, like, you know, the opposite of you.
Which
yeah,
is
exactly.
so funny because we're both
Yeah.
Virgos. So, but here's the thing: Alex and I think the same, just in different aspects, right? I am very, when it comes to creative things, my brain does that. It's just I know that my field is not necessarily day-to-day life. I did not know how to keep, my personal
Routines, yeah.
routines. That's just part of ADHD, and that's part of my mental health journey. But I can get shit done. I have that wiring, so I see where Alex is coming from. I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't get it in the way that I'm very emotional and he's not. So I'm like, for him, I see this path. His journey will, because he's so highly functioning in that left brain, if he could access that part of himself that's emotionally intuitive, golden. He'll get everything. Not saying that it'll be perfect, but I'm saying that's the next step for him on his soul's journey.
It's just so funny that he pulled the emotion card. Oh, so what specifically was the thing he pulled?
He pulled the King of Cups, and it was talking about mindfulness, which was something that was so mind blowing because Brian was talking about that literally like last night, and which was also funny about it, and the realization I had now was that y'all were arguing back and forth about what Alex's card would be. And it's like, and you're not arguing, just like debating on the way we should phrase it. And it's funny that like that influence kind of came into the mindfulness that you were wanting pulled into his reading on it.
The spirits are like, bruh.
And also the card was talking about compassion and humanity. And I actually would like to read this one because this is talking about the king.
Sure.
Yeah, grab it. Read it.
Just don't
I'm
mind.
telling you, it was such an awesome card.
It really is. I like the way that this book phrases it. If you're starting out with tarot, a lot of them will come with a little book inside of your deck, and it will give you interpretations of the cards, and it's so easy to just start there,
No, I'm telling you guys, that card picked me.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't pick that card.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you think of the King of Swords, they ask you to think of
I thought it was
clarity.
King of Cups.
Oh, you're right.
Come on now.
Don't think of the King
She's
of Swords,
not orderly,
actually.
bro.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. We already established
Sorry,
that.
Alex just got me so flustered over here.
I have that effect on people.
Oh, God.
This meme has gone too far.
Alex is going to get a big head, y'all.
He already got a
too
big
low.
head.
No,
Someone tell me he's not
no.
good.
Alex is gonna get a big heart.
Alex got
which,
a big heart on
Dude, you're
for
the
this
Grinch.
podcast.
He's the Grinch.
He's
the
the
Grinch.
Grinch.
He
Aw.
wears the Grinch socks all the time.
Alex loves to wear these
Dude,
stupid fucking
come on
Grinch
now.
socks.
Come on now.
I'm actually about
They're
to buy
not
more.
stupid. They're amazing. Come
They
on
are.
now.
They're amazing.
Thank you.
You're the Grinch, Alex.
Dude, you're the Grinch.
They're not
I got a
stupid.
heart
I
on.
meant stupid in a pink. Yeah, you got a heart on. You're gonna have a
Dude,
real
that's
nice
a new phrase
heart
right
on.
there. Alex has a heart on.
Oh
Anyway,
my
so-
God! What is happening to the show?
This devolved.
What is happening to the show?
I just really threw it into chaos.
Yeah, I love it.
Kings of Cups. So think equilibrium, mindfulness, humanity. Mindfulness is keen, making an impact. The King of Cups is able to carry emotions with intention, aptitude, and wit, clearly scoring high on the emotional intelligence scale test.
Well, this is about the podcast.
That's about the podcast,
Yeah.
not about Alex.
It's about
Yeah.
the podcast.
I know.
It's all
He
about
is the
me.
master of his emotions. No, it's just funny because this is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's like Alex is being drawn to that energy.
Yeah, yeah.
He picked this card.
That energy is reflecting on him.
And then in his
and us,
own
yeah.
reading, it's same thing. It was all about getting in touch with his emotions. So he's the master of emotions, and he's able to apply it to humanity by thinking process and his interactions with others. The level of connection he has with people comes easily, and he's able to relate to different personalities, making them an excellent communicator. Now, I don't know if you guys have actually been on our Discord page, but these men have fostered a community for so many different types of people. There is such a found family that has been coming out of this podcast. And like, I don't know about you, but that just gave me so much reassurance that like the work that you're doing, the way that you're connecting to people is really showing them that there's room for everyone to be here.
It's powerful.
Everybody should come and join this party because we're opening the doors for a lot of people. We want anybody who can connect to come to us. We want that. And
it goes beyond the Discord.
No, but I'm saying the Discord is like the reason why I bring up Discord is because it is tangible proof that this is really meaning something. When I get on that Discord, I'll check. I'm not super active on it personally, but when I get on, seeing your people say good morning to each other every day, and there's friendships forming, and there's people talking, and there's people
events organizing there.
Yeah. And there's people they're organizing like a little gift exchange right now, and
guided meditation,
and they're people are having debates with each other and telling people how they feel, and like it's just such a beautiful thing that you guys have fostered. And when that specific line came up for me that's why I wanted to read it, about the different types of personalities coming together. I was like, that to me just shows that like this podcast really is forming something that you guys don't even know.
Yeah.
That it's reaching out to so many. You thought this was just touching people who've had experienced, but it's going beyond that.
Yeah.
You're now seeing people in your daily life come up to you who you never thought in a million years would ever listen to this podcast. We're telling you, dude, I really like what you're doing. And I think that's what
I get embarrassed every time because I'm like, oh no, what did I say on the internet that makes them think I'm weird?
Yeah, I mean,
I get embarrassed every single time in person they come up to me.
You should be very proud of yourself because you are fostering some sort of community online that people feel comfortable enough to tell you, wow, you're really making something. You're making a difference.
Yeah.
You're people that you never expected.
For sure.
The level of connection he has with people. Oh, no, we talked about that. The waters are calm. Even the turbulent is present. He is able to weather the storms and handle hectic situations with finesse and grace. His gift for guidance has heavily influenced people. He also enjoys helping others. The King of Cups is a reflection of you and the man in your life. He reminds you to incorporate compassion, whatever the circumstances may be. And I think that's why I wanted to read it, is because if there's anything that you guys do, it's showing love. That's what we've found is the goal of this podcast, is to show love to people. We want to just spread positivity. You've always said that from the start.
100%.
Ryan has always been like, I don't want to ever bring it negative. I want it to be positive. And like, I don't know, it just shows you that positivity, that compassion, that Christ-like attitude where you actually show love to your neighbor, where you actually see where people are coming from, that's how you're reaching out. And I'm proud of what you guys have done in the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Of course.
I appreciate
so
that.
much.
That's very heavy on my heart-on.
On your heart?
My heart-on.
Got a full-on
My heart-on.
My
My heart-on. I have to enunciate there. My heart-on.
Yo, this shit.
Dude,
this shit's
we
out
all
of
got a
control.
heart on.
And
We all have a heart on right now.
Yeah, I do.
Heart.
Wow, that was life-changing
I couldn't
right
be prouder. And, I think that I value that you guys trust me enough to do something that's very emotionally connected. Like I said, this means a lot to me. When I pull tarot cards for somebody, I feel like for a moment I'm able to pick up their weight and just feel it. Mm-hmm. I just, I grab it and I just hold on to it and I say, okay, I get it. I get what you're going through. This is, I got it. That's enough. And let me just tell you what I can do to help. That's all you can do. Let me just give you a little piece of advice. And it's not me. It's you. You're getting the advice.
Right.
You're taking the lesson from it. And if it's something you're interested in, definitely go towards. Try it.
Check it out. You'll have to check it out.
You'll have to check it out.
The podcast?
No, the tarot.
I was about to say, whoa, this is getting like they're already here listening to it.
Yeah.
No, I blanked for a second there. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
It's too meta. It's too meta
Yeah,
for us.
I think, but we'll get more into this.
Oh, for sure. We'll get into the nitty gritty of tarot. It's just so cool that like we did a tarot reading about, I was telling everybody, I was like, every time I'm about to do a tarot reading in my head, I'm like, oh man, what if like it ends up not meaning anything or not resonating with me? And it always actually does. So I was thinking that before we did this reading, I was like, I hope it actually means something. I hope we get something from it.
No, I honestly have the same fear. So
and
don't
it
feel
did.
bad.
And all three cards they corresponded perfectly with the questions that we were asking, and it is just so mind-blowing.
I'll say this, and Alex asked me this up front. He said, if I went to a tarot deck and I just decided to ignore that feeling of drawing the card that I wanted to draw, or if I, just took intuition out of the thing entirely, right? That's the thing that, like, my tarot deck, when you open it up, it's the first thing it says is trust your intuition, right? And it reminds me every time, I'm just doing this just to get a good gut check, right? See what's going on. He said, if I took, the intuition out of it, like,
Ignored my intuition.
Yeah, there you
Right.
go. If I ignored my intuition, could I disprove it? Like, what would happen? I said, yeah, you probably wouldn't get anything out of it. Because, like, the whole point of it is the practice of trusting yourself. The whole point of it is giving it intention. It means something because it means something.
Yeah.
If you go into it with a bad attitude and think, like, this is hokey, this is dumb, you're probably not going to have a good tarot reading.
Yeah.
The only time I've had a bad tarot reading was somebody who wasn't interested in having their cards read.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think it's the intention. It's the time that you put aside for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And it's so cool. And I can't wait for us to dive super deep and talk about, like, the history of it and the symbolism of it and where it came from. And, like, there's so much to tarot. It's such a cool concept, and it's so negatively stigmatized that I love talking about it because it's really a cool thing. All it is a medium that allows you to explore your own intuition.
And it's one of many mediums.
One of many, yeah.
Art is
Yeah.
something that I do to explore my intuition. Meditation is something that I do.
For sure.
I allow myself to get in touch with nature, and, like, we had talked about using mushrooms in a healthy environment where it's
Yeah,
not something
healthy setting.
I've done mushrooms a couple times, and every time it was with intention. Like, I want to get something out of this.
Yeah.
There's lots of things you can do, and if you're not drawn to tarot, find what it is that really draws you.
For sure.
That psychicness, that feeling of drawing is the psychic ability, right? If you're feeling that intention, like you want to do something, that's just, like, let it happen. Why
For sure.
not?
Why not? Act on the feeling.
That's been the best part of my life. Like, I've been the happiest I've been because I had this decision that I'm going to stop ignoring what I'm feeling. I'm just going to let myself feel those things, and I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to trust myself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Bubby, by the way, that's what I call.
Yes, pee-pee boy.
We have about 1 million pet names for each other, but I have to say, I just love you so much. I think you're truly the most incredible person I've ever met.
Thank you.
You're
I'm pretty cool.
You are pretty.
I hope I
fucking
made a
cool.
good guess. I hope
Yeah.
everyone
Oh
had a
yeah,
good
was
time.
amazing.
It was amazing.
I can't wait to come back and talk
You're the
more
best.
about tarot. I think it's so much fun. And
Yeah.
I could not be prouder of the three of you boys. I feel like you're like, I'm seriously pride and joy, all three of you.
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy for what you guys are doing.
We're
And
proud of you.
every time you guys, I'm just, the growth, it's amazing.
Thank you, baby.
Wow.
Thanks for having me
Feeling
on.
the love and the light.
Thank you all for watching and getting to know my beautiful, incredible wife. She'll be back, and we're gonna
Bye,
do
guys.
not yet.
Oh.
We're gonna do a deep dive into tarot.
I hope so.
We will absolutely. We'll do it at a later
if you'll
time.
take me.
Yes,
yeah,
we
at a
will.
later time. Yeah, we'll
you'll
we'll
have
we'll
me.
sit on this one for a little bit and then round the corner. It's game on.
All right, you know what to do, girl.
On three.
3, 2, 1. Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more, check out our other videos.
And before you go, don't forget to subscribe. See you next week. Peace.